I can unmute myself. Just saying right now, I'm not going to run the like minute and a half TIS intro because that's very much how I feel the Sunday show goes. So I'll just go to the screen and then unmute. I'll let you know as soon as I unmute, so that's all good. But you're good to go, right, Matt? It's if you want to, you know, think about it for a bit. It's all good. Well, INN. I can ping INN, yeah. Okay, that's cool. And I just need to quickly get the. I need to get the fucking thing for invite for the TIS Discord as well. INN pinged. Delay won't do anything. I mean, if someone comes in and starts, you know, swearing or, you know, doing kind of thing, the delay won't basically stop it from. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, the delay won't do anything for it, so it's all good. There's no point. Okay. Well, how about 5 seconds? Because that's how long the fade was going to be. True, that's true. It's very true. But like, say 15 seconds from now, right? Okay. You're ready to go whenever you are, Meryl.
All right. Welcome to Special Talking in Stations. We're going to be discussing the recent sale of CCP to Pearl Abyss. It has been described as more of a merger by Hilmar, the CEO of CCP. So we're just opening up the airwaves kind of thing. And if you want to join us, that's great. You can find us at Talking in Stations Discord. You can find that at talkinginstations.com. You can jump in and jump into this public channel that we have, and we can talk about, what you think's going on. Is the, what the future of EVE Online is going to be like. It's an open discussion. We will try to bring information about the changes that are headed our way. If there are any changes, there may be no changes. And that said, this weekend, we're going to have the new executive producer and the new creative director on the proper show Sunday, 1600 UTC. That's Talking in Stations this Sunday. So for now, we'll open up the, I guess we'll call this a town hall and start trying to get some information. One more thing, we do have some CSM guys that'll join us later, but they're actually still in meetings right now. This was a surprise to them as well, this sale. And so they're finishing up their day. They have a couple more hours, or about an hour and a half to go. And then they'll be able to join us and tell us, how the summit's going, what they know about this kind of thing. If you know anything about this, go ahead and chat inside the INN Twitch channel and let us know what you think, how you feel, what you know. We'll try to dampen down hysteria, because it's really nothing to be hysterical about. All right, well, welcome, guys, to Talking in Stations. I'm going to now try to unmute you guys as best I can, because it's definitely we don't want people jumping in and saying stuff. Kurt, you're a news guy. What's this look like to you?
Well, I think we still need to wait a bit for more official information, but right now it doesn't look fantastic, because they're going to expect CCP to meet certain deadlines that otherwise they may not have. But I would like to point out that a lot of people are sort of saying that, and saying, oh, well, this is an entirely new thing. They've got to meet all these deadlines. It's going to be really rubbish. But, they had people with shares before who were already expecting them to meet targets and stuff. This is just them swapping them out for somebody new who we don't really know that well.
Well, it seems like we saw some information. If you're looking at Twitter now, or if you're looking at Reddit, or if you're looking at anywhere else, there seems to be a lot of people worried. And earlier today, which is one of the reasons we wanted to go live, we were talking to Carneros, who actually works in the industry. And I've worked in the film industry, which is kind of related in that it's a lot of creatives coming together to put projects through that are very expensive, but also have high prestige value to a certain crowd. So a lot of the same rules apply for film that apply for all entertainment that's created. And yeah, there's definitely some, as you were saying, Kurt, some things that are possible to happen. And that is that, the merger of two companies merges culture, merges accountability, I guess merges, what'd you say, deadlines?
Well, deadlines is the wrong use of the word, but an investor, shareholder really will expect CCP to meet a certain amount of profitability and to be able to reach certain targets. Deadlines would be like in reference to development targets or making certain changes to the organization. I'm not a massive expert on that, but this, they already had that, but this is somebody new who will likely expect different things from them.
But is that any different than
95% of cars be electric?
Yeah.
Not any different than investors you take on.
Yeah, which is kind of what I'm saying. Is they already had people expecting things from them. This is just a whole new group who do.
Right. Does anybody know about the group that bought them, the Pearl Abyss?
They run Black Desert Online, and right, so they're a publicly traded company. There's not too much out there, but apparently the last year or so they have been going on looking around for investments. I can't find much about the investments they've done, so this may be the first, or it may just be others aren't public yet.
Well, from the articles that I've read, which is only two, they're a South Korean company, right? And like I said, it's positioned more by Hilmar as a merger of attitudes. CCP actually is not in any financial trouble. They have 40 million in the bank, and they're meeting all their development budgets. And he says this is when you make this kind of a move. And his point was that they saw a kindred spirit in as far as production. I mean, how they were developing games, and there's a lot in common between Iceland and Korea. And so this was something that was quite natural, and they see it as kind of a cross-pollination. Well, that's what we suspect will happen. It'll be a cross-pollination between ideas on how video games should be developed and built. Now, that could mean a lot of things, right? Like we could be talking, more or different kinds of transactions. What are they called? Microtransactions. But whatever happens, it probably shouldn't be anything that happens fast. And I wonder if a group purchases a successful game, if they try to tinker with it at all. Maybe they just leave it autonomous with the people who've actually built it. I don't know. You guys have thoughts on that?
So what has been said so far is that they will be autonomous. Obviously, people are still worried that stuff may happen. They will still have targets to meet. I don't know what that will implicate happening, but the targets shouldn't be anything too severe. So we should be fine. I hope.
Yeah, so what do we know of
to take with a grain of salt? First off, a lot of the language is similar to the language the CCP used when they acquired White Wolf, and we saw how well that worked out for White Wolf.
They kind of ate them up, didn't they?
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, for the last 2 years, every freaking change in EVE has been met with, oh, but at least it's keeping the venture capitalists out. Except the venture capitalists were already there. They already owned the company. And they were behind a lot of changes that were being pushed. So one of the big things to remember when you're looking at all the community outrage is that this is the EVE Online community. We're going to be outraged no matter what you do.
Yeah. Is that what we're seeing out there too? I haven't looked in other places, but I can imagine there Reddit is probably a lot of unhappy people right now.
Reddit is on fire.
Okay, so it's an understatement. I haven't looked there. I will as soon as I can, but TIS has been a ton of discussion going not only behind the scenes and production channels, but out in public here. Were you gonna say,
if you look at the Twitch chat right now, okay, you will see basically a microcosm of the most polite and optimistic 1% of Reddit.
Yikes.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Well said.
So that's how I woke up in Central Time at about 3 o'clock this morning, was seeing this on Reddit. And yeah, it wasn't, it was torches and pitchforks this morning.
And I am just going to repeat here what I said on Reddit. Okay, this happened during the CSM summit. obviously Aerith is behind it all. You know,
Right. What were you guys' reactions to the news?
For me, it was similar to the guy saying he'd woke up and saw Reddit, but I saw the Eve Online tweet and thought I'd misread it as Eve Onion because I wasn't quite sure what I was reading.
like literally, my first reaction was, and you know, this is straight out of the INN editors channel. The fuck did I just wake up to?
For me, it was a little bit of like, I'm in real life, I'm kind of like I guess you would say a socially kind of inept person. I guess I'm not really good at like talking to people, but Eve kind of helped me get out of that. And my first impression was, God, if they shut down Eve, who the hell am I going to talk to now?
Now what?
Yeah, it's like, now what?
I don't think they'll shut down Eve at all.
I highly doubt that. I highly doubt they'll shut down.
That's worst case freaking tinfoil hat scenario.
Oh, that's not even that's really not what's going to happen here. It's not realistic. Sometimes companies will buy an intellectual property, an IP, and they'll if it's a competitor, they might shelve that IP. But sometimes they just buy the IP to do something different with it and don't need all the staff that goes along with it. That is not the case here.
But you know, it does raise an interesting question. We've been hearing a lot since Las Vegas, at least, about CCP's new upcoming MMO.
Yeah, and did
What
you see
does this mean?
he actually he let and by he I mean Hilmar in that article. We'll post it in just a second. Said new action MMO. Now, I don't know if action is very, very generic, but I think that's pretty interesting because action is different than, say, a new strategic MMO or something like that.
I mean, that's two terms we've heard, because we heard role play before when it was there, so now we know it's an action role play MMO. Doesn't narrow it down too much more, but it's getting us a little bit closer.
Right. Little program note, McLeod, if you can break the, we're getting so many people in here, if you can break the column of people.
I can change it. Yeah, I can. Well, yeah, I can break it, or I can change it to only people talking. That will probably be a lot more manageable.
Sorry, you guys speak a matter of.
I would break it so that people can see who's in here and stuff.
Okay.
Sorry, the unmanageable way. All right.
Sorry, I just wanted to address something in a chat quick, which is I don't want to see Eve Desert online. And that goes back to sort of what you said a minute ago, where they don't kind of just buy an IP like this to do whatever people are afraid of. They're not going to buy it and ruin it because they've just spent $500 million on this IP. They'd be shooting themselves in the foot to kill it off.
It's not just the IP that they've bought. It's not like they've gone in and they bought EVE Online from CCP. They've gone in and, you know, basically bought the whole company. So they obviously feel like, you know, there is value to CCP, not just value to EVE Online.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize.
Well, obviously there's value to CCP. I mean, you know, as much as we put them down because we ladle 6,000 people into a single system, you know, Eve's got the beefiest freaking servers out there. No other game could do 6,000 people in one space.
Well, Eve has value, but I think that's often been like a recent thing. Like, they've only become quite profitable like in the recent years. In 2013, they reported a loss. So
can you speak up a little bit?
There has been like a journey to this point. Like back in 2013, CCP reported a loss. So that they have been building up to being more profitable, a more sellable company for a few years now.
All right. If you're just joining us, I'm going to start trying to answer questions in chat with the little information that I know. Most of the people behind Talking in Stations do a lot of news gathering, so we'll try to get some people getting some information, although there's not much out there. But we are doing an open town hall to talk to people about their reactions to the news that CCP after over 15 years, is being sold to a different MMO maker, Pearl Abyss. Or are they the makers of Pearl Abyss? I'm not even sure.
No, Pearl Abyss is the company. They make
Okay.
Black Desert Online.
Black Desert Online, which is kind of funny because isn't that where the Greedy Goblin guy went? He's like, I'm done with Eve. I'm going to this Black Desert.
It is.
Great. So we moved back in with him. That would be fun.
I must now go to Gelvin's blog and shit that up.
Yeah.
For sure he'll love hearing from me again.
Yeah, that should be funny. So, and those of you that don't know, Gevlin Goblin was, well, I guess he was a blogger for EVE Online for a few years and was quite amusing. And then he decided he was going to move over to Pearl Abyss's game, Black Desert. So now Pearl Abyss bought CCP. It's kind of interesting that Black Desert is kind of like EVE Online, that it's an open world place, right? Am I mistaken about that? Has anybody played Black Desert?
You ask that like any of us play anything else. Eve doesn't give you time to play other things.
Isn't that interesting about EVE Online, that people don't play EVE and something else? And you know, if they're not playing EVE, it's not like they just go and find something else. They actually maybe even stop playing video games.
EVE is a lifestyle choice.
I've played it.
EVE doesn't have to be a lifestyle choice.
No, not unless you want to actually,
some people
do
just
well at it.
Decide to.
Well, so Roxy, you were saying you've played Black Desert?
Yep, it's very much like World of Warcraft.
So it's not open. Is it open world in the traditional sandbox?
It's open world, and I mean, it's a good game. 9.5 million subscribers, so it's a pretty good game. But like all of those games, after a while, it gets boring.
Right. Do you think, does anybody in here think that moving to a publisher like Pearl Abyss, and remember, I think they're going to be the publisher, not necessarily the developers. The developers all stick around.
Big thing about BDO is it's microtransactions. A lot of them.
Yeah, it's heavily microtransactions.
The owner, and anything else we don't know yet.
Well, the article again that I cite Hilmar's interview. Well, it could be what he said, but it is what he said.
And in 6 months after the deal goes through, Pearl Abyss can decide, yeah, we're changing that.
Yes. And I think that's where everyone's concern is, right? Once that deal is done, Pearl Abyss have full control.
Right. I mean, that's just what being a subsidiary means.
Right. On the other hand, though, I'll push back horrendous. Would you mess with EVE Online if
yes.
Shown this, if it had shown this kind of resilience in the face of other MMOs crashing and burning and losing everybody? Would you mess with this formula?
That depends on how I see its resilience. Do I see its resilience as a result of a robust game, or do I see its resilience as a result of, this offers an interesting and unique play style for players where griefing is not just allowed but encouraged, and the very worst aspects of humanity can be indulged in, and the people who want to do that will stick with this and keep coming back no matter what we do to them.
Here's my take on this. BDO, well, the company that did BDO, they're there to make money. So they're going to do whatever they need to do to increase the subscription rate to this game. And if that means dumbing it down so that Joe Blow and his wife can play, that's what they're going to do.
Very possible.
Does anyone know the loot box situation in Black Desert Online? Like, haven't they had a tons of criticism over that, and were they forced to change it, or is it still intact? That's the only thing that really worries me. Is I really, really disagree with that whole loot box crap, and I know they're at the forefront of it, at least, or they
haven't
were.
changed it.
Well, various countries are actually starting to make that illegal
Dutch,
to a degree, so that should actually influence them.
well, you say it'll influence. However, there was something of a company yesterday that's literally just turned them off for that one region and said you guys can get stuffed. So if they do have it and you're in one of those regions and it does get implemented, I don't see it being done. But if it does, that may be what gets said.
All right. If you're just joining us, it's for the last 30 minutes we've been on talking about CCP's CCP sale to Pearl Abyss, the makers of Black Desert Online. They're a Korean company. So we are discussing that in an open forum. You're welcome to join, and we will let you talk if you know stuff and ask questions and chat here. So you can join us on Talking in Stations Discord, and you can reach that by going to talkinginstations.com. You'll find the Discord button there.
Ultimately, I think right now it's too soon to be going and making any major predictions about what they'll do and what they won't do.
Yeah.
I think
Cautiously optimistic because it takes CCP out of the hands of people who don't have any involvement in gaming. The venture capitalists and bankers who've owned it, they literally are not gamers, don't care, they're not developers. So that's something at least. Whether or not that's a good thing, who the hell knows?
Do we know who the old owners were, the old shareholders?
I heard one of them mentioned it was the guys who did the Adventure Capitalist game or whatever.
they were
They're
listed in some of them. In one of the.
You know, one of them's a big Icelandic banker.
They're not venture capitalists. They did the venture capitalist game.
No, they had a stake in the company or whatever. I can't think who the main groups were. Nova something.
So it was Novator Partners, which were one of the main investors. So as a lead investor, was Novator Partners.
That's the one, sorry.
The other ones were General Catalyst and NEA.
They got out of the venture capitalist. They got out from under those strings, though, didn't they?
They changed investors. I think they changed some mid-level investors at some point. I think, but yeah, I think the Novator partners have been long-term investors for at least 13 years. So, or for 13 years, I think.
So what happens in a situation like that? These guys cash out?
Yeah, I think it's a cash-out situation.
Or they stick with it. I don't know. I guess there's some options back there. It doesn't really matter, I think, on the business end of things. We're more concerned about the investments that we made as players, right? Like the amount of time we put into this thing, the friends that we built around it. That's what we're worried about, which is probably what you're seeing is a lot of the, I wouldn't call it panic, but a lot of the discussion out there in different areas is concerned with what's going to happen with this game that we've been playing for a long time and investing a lot into. And all we can say is, well, we really don't know, but we assume that when companies like this merge or get bought, that things happen at kind of a slow pace. But will this change the direction of the game's development? Will we see more transactions, for instance, which I guess Pearl Abyss is known for? Or will they leave a winning formula alone and let the people who've built Eve continue to build it? I think it depends on, interestingly, the development pathway that is being discussed over at CSM Summit right now as we speak.
I think one positive thing that might come out of this is they're going to increase the subscriber base. All those Asian players that don't play now.
You think so?
Oh yeah, they'll advertise this to hell.
Oh, so we might get that marketing budget that we've been wanting, right?
And yeah, you say that as well. But I asked it in public earlier, but maybe there's a possibility they can leverage PA's localization teams to maybe bring better localization for those regions.
Oh, you know that there's going to be a like a South Korean or a Korean kind of localization client very quickly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the thing. If they're going to market it to them, they're also going to do that, which is, in all honesty, only a good thing.
So, do you guys want to know a little bit about the investors from the Wikipedia pages, real quick, or?
I'm definitely interested in
The old ones?
previously owning it. Yeah.
So, right, okay, so I'll just read a few things from Wikipedia about the previous owners. Like, Novator Partners is an English private corporation specializing in telecommunications, pharmaceuticals, and financial services. They also operate a private equity firm and a credit opportunities fund. So that was their main investors. Companies based in London and led by an Icelander. So, you know, that was their main investor for 13 years. The other guys were General Catalyst, who was an American venture capitalist firm focused on early stage and growth investments. They invest in companies such as Snapchat, Neverwire, Stripe, Airbnb, Deliveroo, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And the New Enterprise Associates is an American-based venture capitalist firm, same as the other one. And they invest in stages ranging from seed stage through to growth stage, whatever that may be, across a whole bunch of industry sectors. So they're just a diverse, generalized investment firm. And so Pearl Abyss was, hang on, where's the actual thing about development? It was founded in September 2010 by someone called Kim Dael, previously a developer with Handgame and NHN Gaming. Handgame was a South Korean online game portal operated by NHN Entertainment Corporation. They did casual first-person shooters, MMOs, sports, and other genres. And Naver, NAVER Corporation, was an internet content service company in South Korea. So that's basically kind of a very, very pre-seed background on former investors and Pearl Abyss.
So we don't see this as just a giant, I don't know, investment that'll be hands off. We see this as people are going to publish it differently.
Well,
I mean, I like the idea of a lot more advertising. So I used to, when I guess around 2010, I used to see a lot more Eve banners. I'm sure they were following me around because I was playing it, but I used to see them.
And because you're in advertising.
What's that?
And because you're in advertising.
Well, I don't know if they had. Well, no, I'm just talking about like, oh, maybe. But I was talking about just surfing the net and stuff, that I would see Eve everywhere and I would feel pleased that this beautiful game I was playing was out there and being.
Well, yeah, but that's just Google's analytics. They track your activity.
That's what I mean. So it was this false, bubble around me that was saying, oh, yeah, these are going out to mass audiences. But maybe, as Roxy said, that the budgets for marketing the games might be different. Maybe we get an infusion of South Korean players. But I wonder, do they like? And is this? I hope this isn't a bad thing to say, but could be stereotypical or prejudicial. But do they like sci-fi as much as other types of games? Like,
oh yeah, Siege Green, which is a really bad.
Do the people who did the first StarCraft professional crap like sci-fi? Is that your question?
Is StarCraft sci-fi? I guess it is.
It is.
StarCraft.
Oh, I don't.
I know it starts with star.
He comes from an entertainment background. He thinks star is like, stars on the catwalk, or on, on.
Hello, Dirk McGurk.
Did I arrive too late, or like has all
that was
bitching and
perfect,
whinging-
Dirk.
Oh, you're
It's all
just
the-
in time.
Has all the bitching and whinging about loot boxes and every other form of monetization already been said?
Not
Some
quite.
of it has, but I'm sure there's room for more.
No, I mean it's like the rank
train-
utter speculation that immediately jumped off on this thing it is almost as bad as some other things I saw out there, which was mainly the CSM, which all came out with glowing reviews as though anybody has any idea.
Well, Dirk, I'm fairly certain this train has no brakes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even.
It is kind of. I haven't seen. I've only been awake a few hours. I think Dirk's been up more hours than me, and TIS. Yeah. What?
I haven't been to bed.
Oh, are you serious?
Right as I was like kind of dozing off, I had some pain in my shoulder, so I was having a hard time getting to bed. And right as I was dozing off, I decided to reach over and look at my phone, and there was CCP's been sold, and I went, "Oh Christ, I'm not going to bed."
You've been up all night reading about it.
So we've got punch drunk Dirk.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Awesome.
I do find it. I just do kind of find it a little bit funny. Like I was seeing some comments out there about there were 30 other companies that they could have sold to that would have been better for EVE Online than this one. I'm sitting there going, were there 30 other offers on the table? I mean, like.
No, they weren't.
that's the
I imagine, I guarantee you that there weren't 30 different kind of things like that. And secondly, 99% of those, pretty much all of those other 30 wouldn't have been able to have actually, put the money up that was required for it. So,
yeah. Well, and the gripe was that Hilmar went for the money, and I'm sitting there saying, well, number one, I don't know that Hilmar went for the money. I think those venture cap funds that overstayed their venture cap period in a company were probably sitting there going, we don't care who you sell it to, but get us the most money you can.
Yeah, it's not like Hilmar could go for the money here. Hilmar's not the one who ultimately makes this decision. The investors are.
The board
They're the ones who have to sell.
The board of directors does. The board of directors makes the vote to decide the sale, and after that, the shareholders have to approve it, which is the investors. But it comes down with the board.
Right. Well, and this has been something that in various incarnations that we have been talking about for several years. When the outside investors' equity interest in CCP went above 50%, we began to be concerned about the fact of these are not just your typical mom and pop investors. These are venture cap and private equity firms that are looking for a different rate of return over a shorter period of time. And at some point, they're going to want to get out.
Dirk, I need to say something here. It's not something I'm going to say to you often, though it is more likely when you're sober. Thank you for being sane here, Dirk.
Well, it was really funny because with what I was seeing out, because I was going back and I was kind of going back and forth with some of the CSM who I thought right out of they went and they had a meeting, because they're obviously they're up in Iceland. They went and they met with Hilmar, and whatever they were told, right, came across as, oh, it's all going to be fine. We talked to Hilmar, it's all going to be fine. And I'm like, okay, you're coming out on this super robust positive side, almost to the point where you sound like your PR at this point. And then on the other side, you had all of the the loot box people and, oh my God, Korean monetizing game maker and things like that. I'm sitting there going, holy crap, I am literally on the middle on this one, which is a neutral stance of, why don't we just wait and see?
Right, we don't know enough yet.
This is EVE Online. It's been around for 15 plus years, where every single day that we log in, we reevaluate the condition of the game and the company that does it. I think that we can, give it a little bit of time here and see how this works out.
We've put up with EVE is dying since the first day EVE was released.
This is a strange day, Derek. You and I are the voices of moderation.
Yeah, it's strange indeed. All right, if you're just joining us, we have an open town hall that you can join. You can join here in chat for Imperium News on Twitch, where you're watching this live, or you can join Talking in Stations Discord, and you can get to it through talkinginstations.com, where we have a public chat, and we also have a public voice chat, which are the voices that you're hearing from. So we have people from INN like Arendis, and you have McLeod, who's producing this with us. You have Cascora, you have Keyboard, and lots of other people, and now including Kurt from NER and Dirk, Kurt and Dirk, Dirk from Talking in Stations. So we're going over what was announced earlier today, and in case you haven't seen it and you're just waking up, CCP announced that they will be acquired by Pearl Abyss. And there's the announcement on your screen now.
Oh, hold on. For $425 million. I mean,
yeah.
Now that's got some earnings incentives in there and things like that, as well built in.
Are we proud of that?
I'm dumbfounded by it. I really want to see what is on the bill of sale there.
Well, 425 is basically the what CCP believes, or what PA value the company as. I mean, essentially, right?
It's worth 500, but 4 is a good deal.
What did we? There was a number that was thrown out before. Maybe.
Noisy had an estimate of 900 at one point coming from something that was worked out, but
900 million?
No, that's what they were saying it might be worth, and that was kind of laughed at.
Yes, even Noisy went, I'm not quite sure on this, but this is what doing a bit of maths works it out to be. The other number he had was about 300.
That was probably his number, yeah.
Yeah.
More realistic number, and he got closer to it. I love this comment here in chat from Lord Shazbot. How many Viking boots can you make with 425 million?
A lot.
Well, earlier, the reason we went on live is because we had Carneros, who works in the film industry, talking about this, and he was very, very
he works
actually
in the game industry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What did I say?
Film
well, it doesn't matter.
I mean, those are
you used to work in the film industry. Yeah,
I worked in the film industry. He worked in the games industry, and we're kind of comparing notes. But he was saying, and I thought a little out of character because he was very forceful about calm down, this is what happens. The game's changing anyway. It will change. It has changed. Eve of today is very, very different than Eve of yesterday, and this is another evolution. And it's nothing to be extra worried about. And then he explained a lot of what goes on in the games industry and how it compares to the film industry.
Ultimately, I think it all comes back down to one question that we've been asking ourselves for decades now about whether or not it's time to panic. It's very simple. Do you know where your towel is?
And it's always been the same answer, I think, is you can if you want to, but it's not going to change anything. And the game's still here.
Well, I mean, not just that, but scream all you want on Reddit, right? You're not stopping this deal going through. As much as I don't like saying it, it's put up or shut up sort of situation.
Well, I mean, none of this should be about stopping the. Yeah, there's nothing here that's about stopping the deal, right?
No, I just mean if people don't like it, you're not going to manage to stop it. It is what it is.
Look, I can understand why there may be concerns out there, and those are concerns that kind of need to be put up. Hey, go to the AMA that they're having. What is it, tomorrow? That they're having the AMA, and I mean, hopefully, what happens is that there were some questions that were asked by the CSM up there, which I'm sure were related to the future of monetization, and oh my God, are you going to give us gold ammo and stuff like that, right? Present those questions right up front. Let's clear the air on that sort of thing. I know it'll be one of the questions that we ask on Sunday to CCP Manbjorn, the new executive producer. Let's clear the air on some of these kind of low-hanging fruit concerns that people have out there. Before we start even remotely talking about,
Well, they're doing an AMA tomorrow on Reddit.
Right. Yeah, it's at 1630 UTC, 1630 UTC, I believe. Did they say the forums?
No.
Oh, was it a Reddit AMA?
Seems like it should be on the forums. And then this Sunday, we're going to have the executive producer and the new creative director on Talking in Stations proper. That's Sunday, 1600 UTC, right here on this channel.
How will the and CCP Burger, the new creative director, K Mithendros out in chat says, how will this affect the CSM and Eve meets? Will they keep the CSM? Okay, so the way that this has been laid out, right, as far as the PR release and the dev blog from Hilmar and stuff like that, is that CCP Games will remain an independent subsidiary of Pearl Abyss, and be operating on their own, which I would imagine would mean that there should probably be no change to the way that fundamentally there should be no change to the way that they're running things, including things like the CSM. I don't know what it might have to do with Eve Meets. Maybe we'll have, I don't know, next year we'll have FanFest DMZ.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, with being a subsidiary, your management and all your layers are intact in CCP. Maybe Hilmar will leave and exit, and I'll be replaced by someone from Pearl Abyss, but they're still going to be managed the way they have been, and they're still going to have financial targets just like they had with their investors.
Well, even if it becomes part of the parent company, like it absorbed, you don't see changes in the next 3 to 6 months. Like any changes that we see in the game, they're already in the pipe. So any effect or influence from the parent company, you're going to see it at 3 to 6 months. But since it's a subsidiary, you usually do goals per quarter. So the next quarter, they're going to evaluate how much money they actually made in those sort of financial targets. Your subscriptions are up. How much money per subscription you're getting, and all those information is what gonna be used to determine what happened with the company, right? You can always, because if you own 100% of the shares, you can always dissolve the company and absorb everybody back into the parent company.
And I don't think PA bought EVE Online to make EVE their flagship product. BDO is significantly larger than EVE. There are new games coming out on the horizon that PA may be interested in competing in. They may have bought CCP for just the secret sauce and how they do things and player retention and how do you get thousands of people on a field in combat.
Well, that is what they say in their press release as to why they decided to, go with it. Is like alongside the, the value that they see in it, they also see that as, being able to teach them how to keep an MMO RPG alive for a long period of time.
Honestly, if they bought CCP to learn how to do those things, not the keep the MMO alive, but how do you get this many people into a single area? How do you retain these people this rapidly for this long? That actually worries me more than if they bought it for Eve, because that means that they don't necessarily need Eve.
Look,
it doesn't mean it's going away, though.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's going away, but it does mean that if that's their focus, then there's no additional incentive to make sure they keep it intact. They want the talent.
Can I?
Yeah, the same thing happened with Athlon Games. Athlon Games is developing the new Lord of the Rings MMO, and they're leveraging the other subsidiary of Digital Extremes for how do you keep players in this free-to-play model still engaged and coming back to your game. So they're doing very similar in that regards, trying to leverage the experience of one company or one subsidiary to support the growth of a new game on another.
Crazy Gamer?
Yeah, just I got a slight break. One of the things that's going on right now is that China is doing some protectionist stuff with their gaming industry, and they're not allowing new mobile games like from South Korea. They're not approving them for play into China. Now, CCP, on the other hand, has been working with the Chinese developer to make a mobile game in the Chinese market. And so that might be one of the reasons why they're buying it, because Pearl Abyss probably wants access to that Chinese market.
Wow.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
That could be part and parcel with the whole new MMO game that they've been saying that they've been going to be creating. Action MMO game, right?
That's the other one. And Connor's obviously said a bit about it earlier, about how obviously with this sale going down and them acquiring the entirety of CCP, they'll have shown them that. I'm gonna take a guess and say it must be looking good for them to have wanted to buy the company with that involved for such a high price. They got to have confidence in the future products, right?
One of the things, the price was 425 million. Noisy. What do you think of that price?
A little bit high, but people may be thinking there's an upside with the entry into the Chinese market. If people are thinking, because CCP is working with like the biggest company in the mobile market, so if they're going to be making some money off of that, that could be factored into the price. I want to say I think 2 years ago I was saying it was around maybe 350 million was what CCP was worth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're paying a little bit more, but it could be, CCP does have access to the market. They already have studios in China, so there is that advantage.
Well, Noisy, the price that they paid for it, like, that would be somewhat dependent on the investors that they're paying off, right?
Well, I think the investors that they're paying off, NEA, I think put in 30 million publicly. And plus they may have another 15 million, because they were buying shares in addition to the special thing that they did with the specific virtual reality investment. So I think that I think it was NEA. The guy that made the investment in NEA died within a year of the investment being made. And so if he was the only guy who believed in the CCP investment, that would indicate, that's probably a reason. That's another reason why the venture capitalists wanted to get out, because if nobody in the venture capitalist company had faith in CCP, they'd want to get rid of their investment right away.
But you're saying that did not happen.
Well, I'm not really sure. It's just that there's a guy, Harry Weller. He was like, one of the top venture capitalists in the world, right? And he made that investment in the CCP, and he died in like November of 2015. And within a month, there were rumors that CCP was up for sale. I realize that's a little bit tinfoilish, but that's when that $900 million figure
got floated.
Yeah.
Which was wildly off at that point, right? But that was just a writer from a magazine that was reporting that number, right?
That was Bloomdale or
Bloomberg, I think.
That was Bloomberg that was reporting that. So this
like
was
Bloomingdale's.
Yeah. So this wasn't like some rinky-dink guy from the gaming industry. This was a financial guy, that was reporting this. So that's when you knew, hey, something's actually going on.
Well, your number of 350 million was a lot closer to the actual number, 425 million, which is reported to be the sale price for CCP.
Now, Noisy, that 350 that we were talking about back in the day, that was also when the whole VR unit was still around and everything, right?
Right.
So
getting it off the books was a good thing, or?
Okay, I actually went through this in real life. So basically, what happens is you might get have a company and there's two units, and that for the company like CCP, it made sense to have VR and your regular. But outside forces might look at that and say, well, we'd like to buy CCP, but we don't want to have the VR stuff involved. So then you sell off that unit to make yourself more attractive for other investors.
Oh, so by taking that risky part of your company off the books, you make yourself more attractive. It's interesting. So there could have been discussions long ago, and they were saying, "Yeah, we like you, but the VR thing, we don't want to touch that."
Either that, or well, they were shopping themselves around, so they probably found that out, and so by shopping themselves around, they found out, oh, people don't like the VR, so they sold the VR part off to a company that does want to get into VR, and then that left themselves a more attractive unit.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So who knew that the business of making EVE Online also had a meta layer to it? Well, it's nice to have you financial guys so that we can talk about some of the stuff with a little more sense. But for those of you that are just joining us, we are talking about the announcement that CCP, the company that makes EVE Online, is being sold to Pearl Abyss, the company that makes Black Desert.
Online.
BDO, they call it? Or
BDO.
Yeah. And Black Desert it was funny because it was always seen as an alternative to EVE Online if you like that sandbox kind of play.
I think there were a number of players from EVE that were over there. I mean, lucky that Discord shows what game you're playing at the time or whatever. But, it's like I remember a lot of people there. Now, I think there was something that happened there where it got a little too microtransaction-y and people started going, But
yeah. Yeah, actually,
I mean, one of the other things that I'm hearing out there, or reading in comments, not necessarily comments in Twitch chat, but comments out there in other places, right? Is this whole thing? Oh, they're a mobile game company.
Sorry, Pearl Abyss is a mobile game company.
Apparently they've got mobile games as well, and
their latest kind of thing that they're developing apparently at the moment is like a mobile version of Black Desert Online, which kind of fits their MO, I guess, if you kind of think of them in terms of like a microtransaction heavy kind of company, because a lot of heavy utilization of microtransaction is generally on the mobile gaming market.
And China's a big part of that market, so that would make sense if they were using CCP to get to the Chinese market.
The Asia markets in general are pretty heavy on mobile gaming at the moment anyway, so.
Well, and it's also a place that CCP is moving in the direction of with various projects that they have. Now, I think they're outsourcing those things, so but it's definitely another avenue that CCP has been working down.
I guess this is where they could have that talent sharing and stuff that they're on about.
Yeah, maybe.
And the next mobile game isn't completely outsourced. They just go up to PA and go, right, we got this idea. Can you get one of your teams on it?
I mean, their expertise does not seem to be exclusively in mobile gaming. Again, it's like people are kind of looking at aspects of that company over there and going, oh, geez, there are all these bad things that we as EVE Online players must hate because we like EVE Online, and it's nothing like those things.
So the CSM should be wrapping up right about now, I think, and we'll see if we can't get a few of them on the stream to talk about the summit and see how it went. So Dirk, I can't believe you've stayed up all night because when the story hit, you started digging into it.
I just started engaging. I was over here and talking in stations, and I just started engaging in chat, and then realized that I had to take my car to get an oil change, and I had to go to the doctor. So I'm like, I might as well just stay up and kind of keep going.
Yeah, on the Richter scale, the earthquake scale, how big is this?
It's probably as big as it gets for what we've experienced, at least with the company, right? I mean, when you look at the oh my God, they wrote off $20 million worth of dead work a few years ago, right? And the Eve is dying thing that was going on from that, and layoffs and that have occurred over the years and things. I mean, this is big. This is the thing. Well, other than Eve is dying, Eve is going to get sold were like the two big ones, right? One probably wasn't going to happen. The other one definitely was. It was just a matter of when. And a lot of the things that they've been doing over the past few years, you know, have looked as though they were trying to improve, not in terms of just growing the company or anything like that, but putting themselves in a position to be more attractive to being shopped out there. They got their balance sheet in order, you know, which was part of the whole write down thing, as well as when they did, I think, the debt conversion and, you know, and stuff like that, right? I mean, I think this is something that has been coming, and like I said earlier, when those outside investors went above 50% of the equity in the firm, it was always that thing of, at some point these guys are going to want to get out. Not just they want to continue to get whatever rate of return. At some point, they're going to want to get out. That's what those types of investors do. And that right there was enough to tell you that the company was probably going to have to be sold in order to make that happen.
You know, I am pleased there was no layoff associated with this. In other areas of business, I usually see when a company gets acquired, they would lay off a certain percentage of their workforce to make it a little more financially attractive. It was nice to hear that part of the financial incentive was CCP meeting their financial targets for the buyout amount.
Well, they did have layoffs, and probably a lot of the sales, those heavy sales that we saw, like I think it was earlier this spring, may have had something to do with it also, trying to bump up those sales and those profits
all summer, really.
Yeah, but it was like really bad, and like I want to say it was bad at the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, I think we chalked it up to a good time to give sale prices because this war was heating up and there was a lot of activity in the game. It was getting publicity, but yeah, they were probably raking in money for multiple reasons.
The biggest changes are yet to come, if any. The outrage, the shock or excitement, the majority of it we are yet to see. We like Dirk said, we don't have a lot to go off right now. We do need to wait and see, I think. And I think I don't really want to jinx things by saying, oh look, there weren't any layoffs. There could still be layoffs.
That's just it. I mean, I don't expect, I really don't expect much that any of us as players, would notice, in 6-12 months, right? There's going to be a transition period, as long as CCP is going along and doing what they're supposed to be doing, and we'll continue to look at the game, right? I mean, whether CCP is owned by CCP or it is owned by somebody else, we're not going to sit there and say, well, geez, I really think that this whole thing with jump fatigue makes me madder now that they're owned by a Korean company. Or Citadels aren't done yet. And boy, I know it's all because of the buyout.
The buyout will augment the outrage we see in the future. Issues or problems with development, that can be attributed to the publisher. It's done all the time. That's why people didn't want like Electronic Arts buying Eve, because of the changes they would inevitably make that would have been bad.
Anytime we can blame these things on something. I mean, anytime that we can blame these things on something, we do, right? Like they were too busy investing in VR and they let EVE Online slip, and all these things, right? And yes, it will be an excuse. However, it will be an excuse that's kind of in the blind. You're not truly going to know that, maybe because you don't think development's happening fast enough in certain areas of EVE Online, it's because of the buyout. I don't know. We've been talking about development not happening fast enough, or being done wrong or whatever in EVE Online when that wasn't part of the equation. So,
I'm like seeing, or I saw earlier in Twitch chat, people saying, "Oh my gosh, Koreans are going to be buying this. That means there's going to be more RMT and all this other stuff." I don't think that people realize that in South Korea, it's against the law to bot. And we're talking, it's a 50 million won fine, which I think at current rates is like $30,000 if you get caught botting.
I was hoping with this whole monetization talk, we'd be able to like buy botting licenses, but now you're saying that.
Yeah, it's against the law.
So they're even really bad. Okay.
Yeah, you have to divorce your idea of botting that's generally associated with China from, like, you know, Korea, because Korea does it very differently.
Isn't it easier to control multi-boxing too in South Korea? Just the way they have to sign up for games?
Yeah, because I think they have to have proof of age, because they've got laws where you can't play if you're a teenager. You can't play between the hours of midnight and 6.
Again, we need to go back to the baseline here of CCP is going to continue to operate. So far as we know right now, CCP is going to continue to operate as the entity that it is, with offices in Shanghai, London, and of course Reykjavik. And they're going to be independent until until they're not, or
I mean, that may be something.
But for now, the baseline is that, right? It's like we can sit there and we can talk about, you know, what are the things that are allowed in Korea and what are the things like in Korea. It doesn't matter. This is still going to be EVE Online, run by CCP Games, the subdivision out of Reykjavik,
right?
With a big parent,
right? But it's just that I anticipate seeing a whole bunch of garbage out of our EVE. Okay, that's redundant, but but we're gonna have all of this stuff that we're gonna be hearing, and it's gonna be like, guys, you guys have no clue what you're talking about again.
I mean, to be fair, none of us really do, because again, we don't have insight into the deal. We don't have insight into the agreement that is associated with it, and how CCP is going, where the agreement is on how they're going to run things, and where and when, the people that technically own it, can reach down and say, maybe you guys should go and do this to be able to, increase your revenues or whatever. We don't know any of that. But just like we don't, just like the other people out there don't know that loot boxes aren't coming tomorrow, and all this kind of crap.
Well, there is, because that's one of the other aspects of this kind of thing, because it is a business deal. There's going to be a lot of, a lot of legalese that's utilized in the business deal, and they're going to be agreeing on various different things. So I think probably one of the most important things to actually ask in the AMA is going to basically be like, was there any sort of legalese definition, or no, not definition, but like legalese kind of agreement on PEA's kind of what would be, how do you describe it? PA's kind of involvement in the kind of like the inner workings of EVE Online. I don't even know whether they'll be able to answer that in the AMA, but like, I think it's an important question to ask.
Well, I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to say something different than what the kind of press release and Hilmar's dev blog said about?
Well, they can't exactly do an AMA with they can't do an AMA and literally just blurt out everything that's been said in the press release, because then what's the point of an AMA? Because there's no need for an AMA. Literally, it will just be every single answer to the AMA will just be refer back to the press release.
Well, but in a way, in these types of situations, that's exactly what you get. I mean, an acquisition is announced, and they then have an analyst call or something like that, and they're answering questions, and pretty much they stick to what it is that they've said. They don't all of a sudden go, well, yeah, I know we said we're going to be independent, but it doesn't mean that they can't come and tell us, because now all of a sudden they're contradicting what it was that they put out there, right?
Well, it's really a question of like, yeah, you said that you were going to be independent, but like clearly there's going to be an agreement in the business deal that you did. So independent for how long? really is what I really feel like someone needs to ask in the AMA.
I don't think they're going to divulge anything in the contract or the legalese. They also won't predict what happens a year from now. Will we still be a subsidiary? I think the questions I'd like to see is more of a personal nature. What are you looking forward to? What is it about Pearl that excites you personally? And try to get some of that perspective from the folks at CCP.
What I'd like to know is, now that we know that the handover is going to be on October 12th, does that mean that Serenity, when NetEase takes over, they're going to aim to reopen it on October 12th?
I believe the date was some point similar anyway, was it not? So I wouldn't be surprised if all three companies were sat down when making that deal.
Yeah, because the Tian City, they shut down. They're shutting down their service at midnight on the 30th of September, and then they said that they were going to launch in October, but they didn't give a date. So maybe that's going to be the date. I know it's speculation, but it would make sense for them to give NetEase 12 days to get everything moved over, and then they can use that date to celebrate.
Well, at the moment, it's all speculation.
Would they also dodge any stuff having to be signed if they were to do that?
Signed?
I don't think so, because they've already done this. Tian City's already started the shutdown process and shutting down the cash shops and everything like that. So I'm assuming that NetEase will come in with their stuff, and it's going to take them a little bit of time to transfer everything over from Tian City's infrastructure to NetEase's infrastructure. So so you've got that. You're going to have a downtime. It's just that maybe they'll push it to be with the official sale date in order to make Pearl Abyss look better in the Chinese market, because I think that a lot of this purchase was because of the Chinese market.
Why do they have no presence in the Chinese market now?
There's a problem with South Korean game companies getting into the Chinese market right now. Basically, the Chinese are being very protectionist, very Trumpian about their game industry. They're not allowing foreign companies in. So if you got a new game and you want to get in, you're not getting into China. And the Koreans have been complaining about that in the press.
And by the way, just in case anybody, because I saw it go through the Twitch chat a little while ago or whatever, yes, but October 12th is the date that this goes into effect, which I believe is 1 week. 1 week ahead of EVE Vegas. So
interesting.
Yeah, it's exactly 1 week ahead of EVE Vegas. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw representatives, from our new Korean overlords, at EVE Vegas. So maybe there will be some sort of thing at EVE Vegas.
Certainly be talked about from the center stage, right?
I would totally think so, yes.
And what do you think about the festive meetup side of EVE Online? Since these things that are sponsored by CCP, do you think that those will continue as they are? Will they grow or will they shrink? Will they happen?
It's a good question. I mean, if what CCP is saying they're going to be, business as usual, then, we already know 2019 was supposed to have been different anyways, as far as the big meetups and everything, right? The fan fests all over, and really nothing up in Reykjavik and whatnot. But I'm going to put that in the we'll see category, which is pretty much everything in this entire.
Yeah, we're double parked in the we'll see category.
Yes, Array. I'm going to bring a bottle, especially for somebody from PA.
I mean, so long as they don't pull a Star Citizen and want us to pay $20 to watch streams, I have no problem.
They used to do that.
Have you guys talked about the BDO angle at all? The whole
no, this is
thing.
Hi, Caleb.
It's
enlighten us.
Definitely not.
Well, if any of you guys have actually played BDO, which is rather good.
Black Desert Online.
Yeah, it's a fairly decent game, but they had a lot of problems with the whole publishing in the West, especially in the US market. And then the whole thing with the publisher that took that product to the US market kept making some decisions and forcing things on the player base that just went totally awry. And if I'm not mistaken, what they've actually bought here, Pearl Abyss, with the whole CCP angle, is they've bought a perfect publisher for any products they will bring to Western markets. It's like a match made in heaven. If they want to actually push products into the European and the American market, you could not get a better publisher and co-developer than CCP, because they pretty much have an experience with communication with the player base and how not to introduce things in a very, very bad and controversial manner. So I think that's really the main thing they've bought. Of course, the other thing that Noisy talked about is very valid, but I do think that's the major thing. If they want a market in the West, CCP is perfect.
Yeah, and just to play off of that, CCP, like when they were making their announcements about the first-person shooter in development and the mobile game in development, they were basically farming that out to developers, and they were going to act as the publisher. So it looks like that was CCP's trend anyway, was to go more into publishing and not be the developer totally. So if that's the case, then that's where CCP was going anyway.
And then again, you can always complain about CCP for extremely many things, right? And we're really good at this as players of EVE Online. But as a publisher and the whole service towards the community, I don't think you can find anyone out there that's comparable or equally good.
You can certainly find people who are much worse, I'll tell you that right now.
Just a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. So again, if you have been listening, we are talking about the acquisition of CCP by Pearl Abyss, the makers of Black Desert Online. And doing some speculation on what it could mean for the future of EVE Online and what changes, good or bad, that might be coming down. I have seen a lot of I have seen a lot of people who are really like throwing a lot of things out there, like, I don't know.
Did we split the whole prediction Deadpool yet?
No, we don't have a board for that.
Oh, so there's not been any discussion on who was closest to the actual date of when they were going to sell.
Date, no. Money-wise, Noisy Gamer came within 100 million, which is actually close if you compare it to other numbers.
Well, back then we talked about what, 250 million euro, right? Was an estimate based on the numbers they gave. And this price is really good for CCP. It's like very good.
Noisy was saying that it was an interesting way into the Chinese market for mobile games, and that makes so much sense in retrospect. If you add the things up that they get out of VR and they go into mobile games, and they think it's going to be a future. There's a future for mobile games. If they were doing all those moves to make themselves more attractive to this company over the last year, then all those moves really make sense towards this sale.
I think there's a lot of synergies. This is just one of them, but the whole match of a very successful publishing game developer in Korea and then CCP, it's all the best of the two worlds, right? So there could be tons of things developing. Also, easier access to cheaper coder bases in the East, right? For CCP to be able to come up with products and push them out faster, right? They've had a lot of problems with that in the past, with developer hours being a little bit strained.
Well, I think that's always been a thing of people working on their own time to do stuff that makes EVE what it is. Alliance tournament stuff comes to mind, events and so on. But I mean, if you're looking at this from perspective of publicity, which I think we talked about earlier, was this is gonna do wonders for EVE advertising. Should they decide they want to put some money behind what's been missing? A lot of people have complained that EVE is such a great game, but nobody's talking about it out in the public. It's really so insular and niche. It looks like these guys are good at advertising to players. So maybe the population goes up in EVE Online, which I think if you look at the game itself can sustain more people that are more spread out. And I think that one of the things that devs over time they haven't told me, but they've indicated is that, that they're trying things, and we all know because of the developments of the past, they're trying things to get new players in the game, and not just the new same type of player, but new types of players that like doing different things. And this may be like a real step forward in that direction, because the world exists, the world can handle more players. I think the game is always funner when there are more people in it. There's more possibility. It feels bigger. There's more little things going on all over the place. And so,
Noisy, where was it where they closed down? Where they closed down some language support? Was that Japan or was that Korea a year or so ago?
Japan, right?
Yeah, that was Japan. They never had the support for Korea.
And I'd just like to reiterate, I don't think that they're buying EVE Online as much as they're buying CCP and
right.
the overall brand. It makes no sense to buy EVE as a game. It's not big enough, and being afraid of cash and grab, I don't see that. I worry about other things maybe, but as a cash and grab, no, not when it's a big Eastern thing coming in. That would have been if it was a European or Western publisher that had bought it.
So they buy CCP for other parts of the company, right? Like access to China's mobile, we were just saying.
And Western,
maybe they buy...
maybe, but especially as a publisher, right? I think they are trying to reconsolidate a lot of the CCP work as they call it a publishing house, pretty much, right? So this.
But I thought the publishing
Carneros, right? Because he's got a lot more knowledge on the whole publishing angle. But I think seeing this as some sort of stepping stone into the Western market is pretty much what they've bought. Anything else they could have bought elsewhere.
Yeah, if anything, it's for the IP itself, not the game.
Yeah, IP and the stepping stone. That's my guess.
Although not to shit on the game, it is a money-making entity. I mean, it continues to be profitable. Certainly in the last few years, it's been more profitable than ever, I think. Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about that. And they've proven that from the liquidity they had. This is not because it's a bad business. It's just not a 425 million business. That's not the price if it's only for the EVE Online moneymaker, right? Then it would have been a third of that, maybe. Right. That's why I said earlier when I said, 425 million, I really want to see kind of what was on that bill of sale. Like, I would love to be able to see what it was they were valuing, whatever, various segments and, all of that, right? Because most of you've got EVE Online, the kind of money-making cash cow that it is right now, right? And then you really don't have anything else that's generating anything yet. They've got some projects going on out there, and then of course you've got the entity CCP and the developers and the IP and all of that stuff, right? So and the upcoming title, right? If that upcoming title is anything more like a traditional MMO, and they're going to start moving in that direction, having that whole thing with a Korean publisher or Korean developer is going to be massive, because a game like that could really be successful in the East. CCP hates it when we talk about like the business side of CCP. Just going back over the years, right? Whenever there were issues, related to their financials or the watching of the up and down of the number of subscribers back when we used to have that information, back when they were publicly disclosing information and stuff like that, right? They really hated that aspect of when players were talking about. They want players to be talking about the game and stuff. This is one of those times where I'm sorry, they just can't. They can't overlook the fact. Well, sorry guys, you sold the whole company. We're going to be talking about this.
But wouldn't you say that this is maybe potentially bringing in more transparency and more what I would call above board business, right? Because the whole thing and the construction of CCP in the past was slightly shady and a little bit obscure, and it's been going even more obscure last 2 or 3 years. I know that Noisy and I have had a few discussions about this whole thing, and doing this, getting rid of that investment group that used to own it, it's going to be a positive thing. Now it's obvious who owns this.
Well, not just that, but they're a public company over there. I don't know exactly, how it would look, broken out within Korean financials, but yeah, I mean, there may be some things that we are able to see that we haven't been able to see since 2014 or whatever it was in terms of subscribers or things along those lines, but.
Yeah, and the whole ownership and who's got what stake, and well, we know a little bit now, especially because there's the sale, right? And what is it? Did anyone mention what Hilmer is actually walking away with?
I saw some crazy number out there. This was like 70 million or something like that, but
it's not 70 million. I think the last time I tried to figure it out, it was more like 6 to 9 million.
Yeah.
Was he like around 5%, or was he 10%?
Yeah,
6% is what I heard.
No, that number is from January 1st, 2017. So we don't know if he gave up some stock or whatever.
He decreased, and that new guy increased and got on the list. And then, of course, some of it went back to what is the holding company, the Novata, is it called, or something?
I mean, there is an element. Is there some sort of thing up there for like equity held, like for employees or something like that? I mean, I do hope they benefit from this, as well.
Yeah, there was a stock option program. I'm not sure if they canceled it, because I know that over the last year or two that the venture capitalists were buying up everything.
All right, speculation. A couple things. One, does Matani own Pearl Abyss?
Yes.
We don't know yet. No comment.
Did he buy it with INN's massive income?
Yeah, exactly.
The multi-dollar media empire.
He's been dollar cost averaging in over the last 2 years.
You're right. It's exponentially grown. Second, we expect Hilmar to stick around, obviously through the transition, but you think he's back in it, or is this?
Yeah,
is he going to try something else?
His Hail Mary, right? This is how he avoided getting outed, because there was forces trying to push him to the side, as far as I know. And this is actually someone that might allow him to stay and work his vision.
FYI, Pearl Abyss stock went down upon news of the acquisition, but it ended the day only down like 1%.
Oh, interesting.
Huh? I thought I saw a jump this morning.
What the rest of the Korean market do?
Koreans are like, great, they just bought spreadsheets in space.
Oh, wait a minute. It's saying
Trump also made a comment about North Korea today, so who knows how it's all connected.
Yeah, because it looks like it took a dump at about 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it might have taken a dump because people were thinking that's not really a popular or good game, and then everyone figured out that the whole spreadsheet in space, they might be actually buying some power for their financial stuff.
Yeah, as you said previously, like buying into the Western market.
Yeah, that one.
And China as well. So.
Anyone speculated on when we might hear some more about that secret new title that CCP has been brewing?
We just heard that it's an action MMO. That's a new descriptor word that was used for it.
You would think that if CCP and Pearl Abyss were to collaborate in any kind of development, it would potentially be that.
Yeah.
As long as it's not some sort of battle royale thing, or some sort of extreme Korean grind, I think I'm going to be okay.
Eve Battle Royale.
It'll be Korea Battle Royale grind.
Now, this we can ask later on when we have the executive producer of EVE Online and the creative director this Sunday. But the pathway has probably, I wonder how this will affect the pathway of development, like what they're obviously going to finish the plans they had before. But what happens after that?
Which side of this do you want me to take?
That's speculating on speculation.
You want to take the Reddit side? Once the roadmap is complete, there will be no further roads driven anywhere, and they will just milk EVE Online until everybody goes, well, wait a second, you're just milking us to death. We're all leaving.
Okay, the other side?
Well, the other side would be that CCP, as an independent, wholly owned subsidiary of, is going to continue to keep EVE going.
I think it's going to be the Chevy thing, right? The Chevrolet. How? What was that big Eastern company that bought Chevy and put it on all their cars? Well, because it's a more valid and more polished brand, right? CCP's whole EVE Online and New Eden. That brand has so many things that you can just put that sticker on, and hardly anyone is going to look too much under the hood of the actual quality. Well, maybe EVE players, but the rest of the potential market is just going to go, oh, that looks nice and shiny, and what a nice backstory and awesome detail. The whole altered carbon angle, right? They can put it on pretty much any game.
I want to remind people, it's a public forum. If you want to jump in and say what you know, come on in to Talking in Stations Discord. Jump in the channel, and you're free to talk.
I would add to what Dirk was saying in that they continue their plans as normal. I'd say, best case scenario, it may be even better than business as normal. They may get some extra cash flow to get more people and do more.
Yeah, well, we have MacJew Gaming is saying that if we know stuff about the way Koreans make games, then he's saying it's a play to win, play to play. Whale hunting is the standard here in Korea. Can anybody comment on the Korean style of creating games?
Well, just from a consumer perspective, the underlying games are usually pretty good. They tend to be extremely grindy, which is required for a cash grabbing model, right? The whole pay to win attitude and that microtransaction thing usually needs some sort of grindy thing underneath it, right? But other than that, it's really high quality.
So we're going to nerf rorquals and then allow you to buy a higher rate of mining, back, right?
Hey, I support that.
That's always been the challenge with those Korean games, is bring them to Western cultures, and the gaming culture in the West is not the same. So it's always that translation, is how do you take this really amazing Korean game and make it attractive to folks in the West?
And could you think of anyone better to do that than CCP, to be honest?
Well, I go back to the interesting thing that either Caleb or Noisy brought up, which was that this is more about buying the CCP company and what it can offer, the Pearl Abyss, as opposed to purchasing EVE. And I wonder if that bodes well or not so well for the game. Will it get neglected, or will it be seen as something that's stable and can continue to develop the way it was before? Because they are making their development budgets. I mean, they have 40 million in the bank, so it's not, EVE is not doing bad at all.
Yeah, well, if they're going in, if part of the reason that Pearl Abyss is buying CCP is because of the upcoming mobile game in the China market, then Pearl Abyss was probably going to want EVE Online to have a great IP, have a great reputation, and everything like that. So it would probably be in their best interest to make it better, and then that way, EVE Online could, the mobile game could be a gateway drug, and then if people in China get tired of the get tired of the mobile game, then they can say, well, I can go and play it on PC, and then the numbers in Serenity will get higher.
I just think that the important thing is to compare how CCP publishes compared to how, for example, BDO was published in the West. If CCP had done that for the company, it would have not had all those problems, and it might actually have been a bigger success financially. And if that's what they're buying, it's definitely a good buy.
And I'm seeing on screen that there a reference to some of the conflict between South Korea and China.
Yeah, it was essentially, China. But it was the little story about how China banned South Korea games over the fact that South Korea apparently adopted the U.S. missile defense system. So I think that's what it was about, and I was just referencing the fact that South Korea games companies can't actually license their game in China, and so this is obviously a workaround.
That makes so much sense. I think.
And then if we're going to go geopolitical like that, China has been sucking up to the Icelandic government because of all the resources in the Atlantic, around the North Pole, and there's going to be a race for resources up there because global warming and everything. So, yeah, so it also makes sense for them to get the Icelandic company because China wants to get in good with the Icelandic government.
I also found an article about the gate about games being a gateway to international markets for South Korea as well. I could kind of put that up on screen if needs be.
Oh, and if you're already digging into that one, McLeod, you do know that gaming companies in general also have this pseudo banking function internationally. So it's also a way to move big amounts of money around.
I did not know that.
Aha! More tinfoil.
That one is fairly well known, and anyone that's been doing this whole meta-analysis stuff about CCP, we've all talked about Russia and stuff in the past, so it's old news.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why some of the things from Daybreak Games kind of failed pretty badly, because it's like a lot of there's a fair amount of it, like Western investment firms that are tied back through subsidiaries and through shell companies back to essentially Russian investment.
Yeah, with a grain of salt and a huge tinfoil hat, it's taken over from traditional whitewashing, and it's a lot easier doing it this pseudo-legit way.
That's the reason why, Daybreak Games had a whole bunch of layoffs. Was basically because of the political situation in the US, where I think there was, I can't remember precisely, but it was something to do with the fact that there was a lot of not taxing, but the hell is it called?
Sounds like.
Basically like a different form.
Sanctions. I think you're.
That is exactly it. Like they started sanctioning, Russian involved, basically any company that was involved in Russian financials in the US.
And basically, like for Daybreak Games, the guy who owned Daybreak, or owned the company that owns Daybreak, he's a Russian aluminum magnate. And so it was like, well, we're going to sanction all of Putin's friends, and you're a friend of Putin's. And so we're going to slap some sanctions on you. And I don't know exactly how they got around that. I think the guy may have had to sell some of his stuff. He was doing a personal refinancing anyway. So he may have just given it to a U.S. citizen or something.
There is something so ironic about the whole aluminum money thing in EVE. It's just so ironic.
Yeah, and I kind of suspect that there's another player in the whole Trump saga, who's also an aluminum magnate, and he may be the guy that was buying Titan fleets for the Russians in game back in like 2007, 2008.
That'd be so funny if that could actually be confirmed in full circle.
Aluminum magnet, free tinfoil, everyone.
But I'll just literally throw up this article on GameIndustry.biz about the whole international markets thing very quickly.
So we're not doing the Breitbart connection yet.
I was trying to find the Breitbart thing.
The fact that Breitbart made his money initially on the whole gold selling.
It wasn't Breitbart. It was Bannon. Breitbart was an actual person, but Steve Bannon, when he left Goldman Sachs, he went on his own. He got involved with a gold selling company that did a lot of WoW, but he was also involved with selling eVisc.
I'm looking at a tweet I heard somebody posted this thing from the Black Desert Online subreddit or whatever. It says, "Hi, I'm from RE. How fucked are we? Proper fucked. You're already fucked."
Are they trying to make friends?
Who knows?
Yeah, we have to comment on Grath's tweet. He basically said,
"We don't have to comment on every. I mean, you can. I mean,
he's a big player.
It's a very knee-jerk reaction. I think he's probably going to like look back at that and kind of go, "Well, what was I thinking at the time?" At least, either that or he'll be like going, "You guys, thought I was mad, but etc. etc." But I don't know. It's all speculation, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, he just said, LOL, so long, Eve, not playing for some company who gates everything behind pay-to-win bullshit after 12 years in the game was a good run. Hilmar had to get greedy sometime. I mean, my reply to him was, that's a little, kind of rush to judgment, no?
It's a first reaction. There's a lot of strong first reactions.
And again, it just goes back to that whole thing of looking over there and trying to say, what exists over there is somehow going to it's very reminiscent. What's really kind of funny, right, is that there was all that talk. Remember when Sean Decker came in from EA and oh my god, we're going to turn into EA and all this kind of stuff. And he caught a lot of kind of shit over the years because of course monetization was coming on more during his time there. Of course, that also included a massive ramp up in skins and things like that. I don't know.
Well, and the argument is, or at least mine, is that it's the exact opposite that's bound to happen, right? It's going to be the BDO people are interested in getting more money by reducing the whole pay-to-win model and figuring out how to do that in a way that works with the player base without scaring them out, right? And this is pretty much what CCP has been doing for the last 15 years, slowly ramping up that whole model, maybe sometimes to their own detriment, right? And this is where we really need Carneros.
Well, Carneros was on earlier. He said he didn't want to say anything publicly.
QED.
But he was very, very, very out of character. Stern is the right word to say about don't panic. This is change that happens all the time. This industry is exactly like this. It's no different than if it didn't happen, because you have Eve of today being very, very different from Eve of yesterday, and it's going to change is just inevitable because people are trying to figure out always how to improve how to improve the machine. And if you're killing it by putting too much of stuff that people reject and hate, then you're not doing a good job. So they will not do the pay to win for everything and that sort of stuff.
That would be a huge mistake because there's so many actual good reasons to buy CCP. They do have a nice track record. They do have some extremely novel and innovative launches of things, right? We're not just talking about the VR. We're also looking at things like the whole Plex model and all of that. They're very innovative, and buying them as brain power alone would make them worth quite a lot of that money, right? So I don't see this as changing much. And I think if we cue the music, I'm pretty sure that Dirk would sing "It's Been a Long Time Coming," because this is something that we've been talking about for so many years. When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And now it happened, and it's actually in a better model than anything I was fearing.
Yeah, really? So you like this? I mean, you're happy with it?
Well, I could see a lot of scenarios that would have been so much worse, right? An EA sale would have been horrible. Something like an actual Tencent buyout would have been scary as F, right? So
yeah, but we could have gotten we could have gotten Sesame credit then.
Just reading up about that is just like that. That's scary. That's super scary.
I think McLeod said one on Push to Talk when he mentioned something about, I think it was Amazon, and the fact that we converted all the Plex thing to Bezos. I was like, no, please no.
You know, people said that it's nicer to live in Korea than it is Iceland. But in reality, nobody's moving anywhere. I think the England stays where it is, England offices. Iceland stays where it is, and Singapore as well. This was in a different article.
Yeah, if you've been part of CCP Reykjavik for a long period of time, you like Iceland. Like there's no sort of two ways about it. Like you have there has to be some serious incentives for you to be staying in Iceland to work compared to other areas and other kind of job opportunities.
Well, you don't know. You don't know what CCP in Chan might look like.
True.
Hello.
Zenuri is here.
Hey, Zenuri.
Hey, if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to just give my quick take on events.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I know a lot of people right now are pulling their hair out or freaking out or screaming about the end times being upon us. And while that might be a normal response, I don't think it's a healthy response, because if I understand the trade correctly, CCP is going to share their expertise with this Pearl Abyss company that makes BDO, and Pearl Abyss is really good at making a high-end, graphically intense 64-bit client that is very stable. And a 64-bit client that is very stable and can handle a lot of graphics is something that CCP Games really needs right now, that and good servers. So I think everyone that is pulling their hair out and freaking out should just take a breather and realize that this was not a decision made on a whim. Hilmar didn't wake up one morning and snort some coke and decide that this was the best decision. It was something that was in the works for a while. And I'm just asking everyone to be really patient.
Do you know for a fact it was in the works for a while? Because I think
yes,
that tracks.
I do. I do. I don't know how long it was in the works, but I knew that this was happening at the most recent FanFest. I had several people, both CCP and people not affiliated with CCP, as well as people that were basically vendors that worked with CCP, approach me individually and sit down and basically talk with me about their concerns. And it wasn't clear at that time what company it was going to be the one. Like, it wasn't clear then that it was going to be Pearl Abyss, but there was definitely a narrative there. Let's put it that way.
I can confirm that. There was definitely talking about something was about to change. So I can confirm what Sinuia said.
Yeah, and it certainly lines up that way, doesn't it? With
that CCP was going to be sold. That CCP was on the was being shopped around.
Yeah.
They were shopping around, without a doubt. Yes. The part that was not decided yet was how they were going to maneuver it financially, and how the specifics of a deal with any given company would assist or work against that. And CCP has demonstrated in their lifetime that they are very adroit and acrobatic in their ability to tighten their belt and be financially magical, for better or worse. So they probably put a lot of thought into how much money is this going to cost us long term, short term? How can we balance that with what the other party in the agreement wants? It wasn't a whim, guys. It wasn't like, oh, let's just do this because we're giving up. Nobody at CCP right now is giving up or has given up on you, the player base. That's not what's happening.
Did you just say that CCP is good at gaming austerity?
I'm saying that compared to a lot of game companies that we've seen come and go over our lifetime, CCP, love them or hate them, they are really good at threading a needle and dancing a tightrope when it comes to their internal finances. Right? They're better than that, better at that than many other game companies out there.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, like, you know, they're good at walking that tightrope because, you know, there has been multiple, you know, sort of, you know, MMOs that have been created and have died in the time frame that CCP has been alive. You know, CCP and EVE Online has been alive, and you know, it's not like EVE Online was a massive hit and then sort of faded to obscurity. It's been quietly burning for a long period of time, and CCP have been instrumental in making sure that has, you know, been the case.
Yeah,
CCP
living the whole evolve or die, right?
I think the best analogy for people that don't really understand IRL corporations and all that is this: CCP Games and the EVE intellectual property is like the fires burning beneath Centralia. It's like the coal fires of Silent Hill. It's been burning for a long time. A lot of people don't know about it. It's not a very like noticeable thing, but it's there. And I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. And I certainly don't think that EVE is going to cease to exist simply because of this change of hands and this change of hats here.
Reminder once again, check out the Meta Show this weekend. Check out all the talk shows from Open Comms to
Talking in Stations.
Talking in Stations. We'll have the executive producer on Talking in Stations, the executive producer of EVE Online, along with the creative director, the new ones. Push to Talk talks about, well, you guys talk about video games in general, right?
Yeah, we've kind of divulged a bit more over the past few weeks into EVE Online, to be honest, but we do talk about other games as well, but I imagine this will be a topic of conversation on there as well.
I think Eric is going to do something about the whole mergers and acquisition angle because he's pretty well versed in that from real life.
Yeah, he's a financial, he works in financial stuff too. So check out Open Comms on Friday night, and then Saturday Push to Talk in the Meta Show, and then on Sunday have Talking in Stations, and right after that is The Insider, which also covers video games. So all weekend long we'll be covering this acquisition, and although there's not much to say that's not public, there will be Ask Me Anything that's done on Reddit tomorrow, and we'll cover some of the answers that came out of there, as well as ask CCP some questions on Talking in Stations.
And the CCPs that we'll have on Talking Stations is CCP Manbjorn, the new executive producer, and CCP Berger, who is now been promoted to creative director, I believe, right?
Yep.
So check that out, definitely.
Right now we're working on getting some CSM members in here. They're finishing up their summit day. I don't know if it's the last day of the summit. Do you guys know?
Yes.
It is, right?
Less.
So they're wrapping up the entire summit in just a few minutes. And we'll try to get a couple of them in here before they go out and party.
Hilmar's going to take them out to like bathe in champagne or something like that.
Oh, programming note on Push to Talk, or a question about it. Is Eric going to be converting the sale price to Delve Time units?
Oh, that would be funny. I'll ask him. I'll ask him to do that. That'd be hilarious.
Derek McGurk, your feelings on this? you're neutral, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty much wait and see. It's like, it's really kind of funny because like the same people, a lot of the same people, a bunch of the same people, who will shit talk CCP, like just immediately went and it's like, oh my God, it's going to be so bad because look how bad this company is over there. And it's like, oh my God, you were shit talking this. I'm just on a wait and see approach. Let's literally measure the quality of EVE Online based on the quality of EVE Online and not try and ascribe what it's going to become because of this acquisition, either good or bad. EVE Online is the same game today that it was yesterday. It'll be the same game tomorrow. And, we'll see where it goes in its natural progression. And if along the course of that, we find reason to, somehow cast blame upon EVE not being the game that you wanted it to be because of this acquisition, as opposed to what you would have said last week, which was, I don't know, because of Fozzie or because of, name a dev or because CCP's bad or, whatever it is. Let's just sort of kind of move along and keep playing. And when something happens, then we can really think about it.
I agree with that. I think it's funny that in the context of inside the game client, when one alliance rebrands or changes their name, or a bunch of corps leave one alliance and join another, we're like, oh, it's the same people, nothing new here. But when it happens in the real world, in an arguably very amicable and neatly structured way, we tend to see it differently.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I don't think has come up enough here, given the fact that last October we had a bunch of layoffs and things like that. For now, it looks as though CCP is going intact. It doesn't look as though there's going to be layoffs or anything like that. Who knows what the future brings with any company or anything like that, right? I mean, but luckily for those people that the community have gotten to know and the employees of CCP in Iceland, which is a sizable employer up in Iceland, all that's good too.
Well, the layoffs happened like under the radar, right?
They were pretty well spread around.
I thought they were detected, but
yeah,
but compared to this sale, right? Compared to the sale, it's so far in the past that it's not really something that people talk about or mention as much as if it had been like buy this and then cut off all these positions. This way, it was a slow transition. It's also why I was saying that I agree with Sinuria that this has been in the work for quite a while. This is like a preparation for a sale, and it makes perfect sense in hindsight.
Yeah, and it's also when a company lays off a bunch of people, many of them which they were planning to do at some point anyway, but needed a batch operation. They're not going to tweet about it and say, hey guys, by the way, we just fired all these people. But when a company sells assets or sells their property to another company, that is something that gets a lot of fanfare and press. So I think it's easier for people to zoom in on this than it is to zoom in on the fact that this isn't caprice, this isn't frivolous, this has been in the works for a very long time.
Yeah, instead of hatchet jobs, we had this slow walking the plank, right?
Well, I guess the point I was making was this could have been an acquisition, with, I don't know, a 30% cut in back office jobs or something like that, where only the development team kind of, went along, right? I mean, it very easily could have been that.
That's exactly what we got. If you look back 6 months, that's exactly what we've had, right? We've had almost 20% layoffs, right?
Well, okay, so basically the layoffs before were to increase the profitability for the sale to make it more attractive. If there's going to be more layoffs, it's not going to happen until probably 6 months after October 12th. So you're not going to see any layoffs till probably second quarter of 2019.
As of right
now, if it happens.
As of right now, no layoffs have been announced. +1 for CCP, or +1 for the employees of CCP.
With the layoffs, I think they're rehiring, right? If I'm not mistaken. Well, if you look at the rotations they've made with the new positions, and many of them are actually Icelandic, right? there's definitely been a whole shifting of employees, and they've gotten rid of the ones that would make them look more profitable.
Yeah, I'm using the word if a lot because we don't know. We don't know what Pearl Abyss's plans really are. So I'm using that word if because I have no clue, and I don't see anybody getting laid off for the rest of the year. I mean that's an educated guess, but everybody's going to have a job for Christmas at least.
So in the press release, they mentioned that investors will get more money if CCP hits its financial targets. How common is that in the sale of one company to another that the investors agree on that, or the prior investors?
I think it's kind of a matter of they don't want to buy something that then falls apart the day after, so they put in economic incentives, so that
it's like a lemon law, basically.
Kind of. I mean,
it's the same with the price not being the exact price unless certain targets are actually hit, because there's all these things in the contract of the sale, and things like the carrot and the stick is always going to be present in something like that.
Yeah, it's mostly a formality and an incentive. But I have a theory, and this isn't gospel. This is just my speculation. I think that what Pearl Abyss wants, under the phrase of expertise from CCP, is a way to unbreak their in-game economy in their main product, Black Desert Online. Because if there's one thing that CCP and EVE do unique from any other MMO, it's their living, breathing economy. So if I'm somebody from Pearl Abyss and I'm looking at my product and I'm seeing that people are complaining about this aspect of it, and I see this other company, I say, well, these guys can fix this problem, and then we can scratch each other's backs. That's what I think this is going to be. Is they're going to share talent, basically.
The thing is, though, I don't think that CCP could come in and unfuck BDO's economy, because there's South Korean law that came in and affected BDO, and you cannot trade items between players. And in order to get that economy unfucked, you're going to probably have to do that, and that's not an option for BDO because of South Korean law.
I disagree that you need to allow player-to-player trading in order to fix things. I think that what CCP could do is they could fine-tune the market, the auction, whatever you want to call the mechanic in BDO, so that instead of a fixed pricing structure, there's something that sees and solves and weaves more realistically to the amount of items available in the market and other factors. I don't think you need to break any laws to at least improve the conditions that they have right now. And my point is that CCP would be uniquely equipped, both technologically and skill-wise and psychologically, to make that system work better.
I don't know, because CCP basically has, about the economy, basically said, players, take over.
Yeah, but they've also kept a very close eye on any kind of exploits or anything that would unfairly manipulate or break that. Like when the loyalty point, and this is I'm dating myself here, but when the loyalty points thing from Faction Warfare or the RAM exploit happened, these were all things that, despite being actual exploits and reason enough to fix them, they were also negatively impacting the game's economy. And CCP took note of that through the apparatus of the economy and was able to resolve it very quickly.
I'm just going to say that maybe this is wishful thinking, but I don't think that Pearl Abyss is going to be rating CCP for developers to go work on BDO.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that they're trying to like poach each other. I'm saying that there's going to be communication, as indicated in the article, and that communication is good for both sides. I'm hoping, best case scenario, that it's going to be a symbiotic relationship, wherein Pearl Abyss says, hey, how do I player psychology with numbers? And then CCP can say, hey, Pearl Abyss, how do I 64-bit client with really pretty graphics without blowing up? And then they can both, trade cakes and eat them. That's what I hope happens. It's a really simplified way of saying it, though, but that's basically my understanding of why they're doing this. I could be totally wrong, but that's what makes the most sense to me.
Hopefully that is the transaction that occurs between the two, not some other kind of, one to detriment both sides. And that's because to be honest, that's the fear mongering that's occurring on Reddit right now, is the transaction of the very negative aspects of both parties.
Well, that's Reddit, and
yeah,
especially our Eve doesn't really pay attention when it counts, in my opinion, because if they realize the irony of a game company that makes a game where people regularly conduct the biggest scams in the history of gaming, to think that that company would be suckered by another company to double their ISK, I think that's kind of it's kind of silly, no?
Just a bit.
EVE players and their community are widely known for their social psychological savvy, especially within the context of financial and social scams. So I don't believe that CCP is being taken advantage of. I don't believe that.
No, and I think that CCP being a company that's been around and keeping this this game afloat for 13 years, would know a scam when they see one.
Yeah, and this isn't the first company that they've looked at, right? Like they've been looking at companies for a very long time. So I say again, this is not an accident. This is carefully thought out.
Who was it that brought up the point that they may be looking at CCP for guidance as to how to build loyalty with long-term fans?
I did.
Well, it's in the press release.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier.
Right.
Yeah, similar things happening with another company, Athlon Games. They're leveraging a Western company that has done well for a number of years, trying to figure out what their secret sauce is. How do you retain players for a number of years and have them keep coming back to your game? MMOs usually are not like that. You get a surge of players and then they all leave for the next biggest thing.
Player
That
meets,
is true.
Player meets.
Like the
Player meets, yeah.
Players that can get drunk together stay together.
Yeah, that's right. They want the over 21 crowd in the US.
Well, I don't think a player meetup would have saved games like Ion, right?
I don't know. Depends on the cause.
That game is still going pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. I think that to use your secret sauce analogy, I think that like I've been saying, the best case scenario is CCP and Pearl Abyss just want to shoot rope after rope of secret sauce at each other and exchange that technological and expertise DNA until they create something together that's very beautiful and serene.
And likewise, CCP, I think, has struggled getting new players into EVE. I think they're just not good at marketing. Whereas I think Pearl Abyss is better at that, getting new players into BDO.
Yeah, it's the whole Skinnerbox thing, right? It seems as if CCP has been really bad at hitting that Skinnerbox way of creating games. But on the other side, they've had this cult following since like 2002, right?
When the I forget what it's called, but it's like the NSA thing where it says in EVE like where you mined and for how long. They showed it at FanFest. When that comes into the game, which its name is escaping me, that's going to help with the Skinner box, right? It's going to help you show permanence of your actions, even outside the context of some PC Gamer or Kotaku article. And it's going to help you basically, it's going to help the end user exert more executive function, and it's going to induce a flow state easier. So that's going to help with player retention and bring in new players. But I'm hoping that they iterate on that beyond what they showed us, because there's potential there to create something that actually feels good, right? Not just is good.
I think that ties into the whole thing with the ecosystem of player types, right? Something that CCP has been pretty good at actually analyzing over the years. And many games fail at this because they don't see how they focus so much on the money, and they don't understand that if they lose all the other types of followings, whether it's people like cosplayers or extremely dedicated old school players, if they lose all of that in their whole player ecosystem, the game is eventually going to die. Whereas CCP seems to have nurtured, well, all of us nutcases since day one, and they've not really lost the core composition of the player base.
Well, the Pearl Abyss CEO had specifically said about the fact that CCP, is extremely knowledgeable and have done an incredible job of engaging and maintaining their player base. Like,
let me ask you a question on
to
that.
a degree. So,
did CCP do that, or did we do that?
Both.
I mean,
I think
you're on a serious question.
Example, Doug.
Well, hold on.
I think
I'm
it's
asking
a
that as a serious
symbiosis.
question because when you go back, several years ago, right, when like there was a cry that CCP wasn't very good at communication and stuff like that, right? The idea of the Eve community, right? The Eve community, I think, I don't know that it grew because of CCP as much as CCP saw that the Eve community kind of formed itself and existed and then engaged it.
Well, I think CCP realized,
and certainly engaged it better over time.
The thing is, I think CCP realized that permanence, of items and of stuff in a persistent online world, will develop people to actually give a shit about the game. And when they give a shit about the game, they will talk, basically tell you where you're going wrong, in order to basically correct your approach. And that as a feedback mechanic for CCP developing EVE Online has been absolutely critical in making sure that they, basically sidestep fucking pitfalls and this, that, and the other that generally have eaten up other games companies and other MMOs. So I think it's partially what we do is partially a product of CCP's design from the onset.
Oh, and we have to remember that there's like a pre and post Monaco gate, right? CCP pre and CCP post.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's one of the things that no company out there has ever survived a perfect storm like that. So just in that, they have a lot of experience.
Well, they survived in no small part because when people raised a shit fit about something and had legitimate cause to do so, they said, "Our bad." They capitulated.
Right? The player base saved CCP.
In that instance, I don't want to give 100% credit to either side of the equation, but in that instance, it was very clear that the willingness to say we fucked up was something that, as a company, saved them from total annihilation. A lot of other companies never do that. A lot of other companies don't even talk that regularly with their user base without using some kind of facsimile or obtuse like form system or something, right? Like CCP is on Twitter and all that.
And that's why the whole incestuous relationship with the player base, right? Whether you're talking about things like the CSM or the player gatherings, right? The fact that so many players got hired by CCP, so there was this interdependency. So the player base pretty much saved CCP because they were mutually invested in each other, right?
Yeah, I think that's you hit the nail on the head. The symbiosis, the mutual assured destruction or mutually assured ascension is essential to this system we have here.
And it's that
Make sure to
sorry,
clean up the language, guys. Thanks.
But yeah, it's I think it's that Pearl Abyss wants to tap into. I think it's that they recognize.
They want to see if they can scale that, and if they can, they do have a good moneymaker, right?
Yeah, well, they've shown from their previous titles that they can make money out of the player base. But they need to now learn from CCP that they can make more money in the long term by scaling back the sheer volume or the sheer sort of like the scale of their money making process in BDO, so that they retain people, so that they retain their player base, and so that they can grow their player base rather than just basically trying to cash out from their player base, if you know what I mean. Because that's the thing that everyone who has played, or anyone who knows anything about BDO is talking about is basically like, oh yeah, PA basically completely shuts everything behind pay-to-win wars, etc., etc. Well, that's all fair and well for like making something and then capitalizing on the existing player base, but eventually that player base will get sick of pay-to-win wars and that kind of thing.
Can I jump in here? I just started looking at Reddit a few minutes ago at some of the stuff. Holy crap, there's a lot of disinformation out there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Disinformation on Reddit?
It's like they're
That's
getting
a
it all.
pleonasm. You said Reddit and disinformation. That's the same thing.
They're getting it all wrong. They're just getting it all wrong. And I think that having guys in here talk about it and exchange ideas is such an upgrade to getting information than reading that, because just the things about this being more of a purchase about CCP and the things that CCP offers as opposed to EVE Online makes a lot more sense. The alignment of the past year of getting rid of VR, maybe having layoffs, and definitely jumping into a hiring mode, all that stuff just lines up really well with the sale. Oh, actually, and getting into mobile market in China, which Korea is locked out of. I mean, all that makes so much sense going into this sale, and all that was brought up here. And then there's a ton of like stuff that we've talked about in the last hour and a half or so that it lends so much more light to the topic than Reddit basically saying, "Oh, you're going to be microtransacted to death."
When you don't immediately approach it from the most negative aspect possible, you can kind of get that.
Hey, I think I'm really hoping that this one post on Reddit is true about them going to release the Hello Kitty Kestrel.
Oh no, that won't happen. And that would be more a
Toffee fans would be spinning right now. That was the case.
Well, we can't talk about this without having Rain and Jintan in here, because they need to be. It needs to be Jintan, Rain, and Sinuria talking about these topics.
But you got. But on Sunday, Matterall, you got to ask if now that we have the purchase, the sale, if we're going to be allowed to have more pink in game.
I'm going to say right now, unequivocally, yes. I'm willing to without knowing all the information, say that there is a almost 99% chance that there will be more vibrancy and color, because CCP has made a grotesque amount of money on vanity items, skins alone, that they don't even need a subscription model. Like, it's crazy.
See,
Do we know the attitudes of the new art director? Sinuria, do you know anything about him?
The new one, how new? Because it seems like they've had a few over the years. Which one are we talking about?
He's creative director, bro.
Burger.
Burger isn't the art director. He's the creative, and Burger's cool. I like him.
And Manbjorn used to be the art director on Lazy Town.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover between Lazy Town and CCP games. That's one of the things I was talking to Aaron about. It's kind of surreal.
So CSM just finished, so we'll see if we can grab a couple CSM guys.
But Matt, you're kind of along the lines of what you're saying there, before about kind of like trying to find some more positive things in this, right? And I forget who it was out there, so sorry, I'm not going to remember your name, but he was like, thank you for making me feel better about this thing. Look, just because we're not coming down on the side of oh my god, this guy is falling Chicken Little type shit, it's also not to blow smoke up your ass either. Let's not come out of it and sit there and go, oh, Hilmar said it's going to be fine, that means it's going to be fine, I really feel it's going to be fine. Who knows?
Yeah,
but the whole point of, I guess, what we're trying to say is at least give it the opportunity to give it a fair shake and see what happens, because the deal is done. This is going to happen. And now let's see what it actually means as it plays out. The way that we always have with EVE, we don't sit there and speculate about what they might do until they announce something or do it.
So we have Ashtarothi with us and Razorian.
Oh boy.
And Killer.
Oh wow.
Killer B's here. Good. So
Killer's the first one to jump in. He's like, I'm gonna get it all out.
Where's Killer B? There he is. Hold on.
You guys should all check out Razorian's pictures. They're amazing, by the way.
We've unmuted Killer B. So
hey, what's up?
How's it going? How was the summit?
Yeah, last I wrapped up, We just had the last meeting. It was good. A very good summit. I mean, I don't have much to work with. I've not had other summits, but the veterans like Aerith and Sword and other people that have been on the CSM for more than 1 year have all told me that it was a good summit. So I'll take their word.
Yeah, cool. So how did you guys hear the news that CCP was being sold?
Just like everybody else on Reddit. Or like in the internet when they posted it. We were having breakfast this morning. We were just sitting in the hotel breakfast area, whatever, and it was posted around the time, and we all just kind of opened Reddit and read it and like had a look at it, and we were all pretty excited because we knew what this day was going to turn into. I have a lot of experience with Pearl Abyss as well because I have played BDO quite intensely in the past. So I do know like at least what BDO is, and I can sort of have some reference on how they operated BDO in the last couple of years and what they've done to it or with it. So I was very surprised it was Pearl Abyss. There was the rumor that CCP was going to get sold has been in the room for a long time, right? For the last 2 years, pretty much. There was rumors of CCP trying to sell, and who is it going to be? People were like, "Oh my god, if it's EA, it's going to go all the shit." I think no matter who they would have no matter who they sold to, it would have been almost the same reaction for any other company out there, at least that I know, right? EA obviously would have been a huge shitstorm. I think Ubisoft, none of these I don't think cared, but I don't think it really didn't really matter which company it was, but I was really surprised it was Pearl Abyss. And yeah, I mean, I was really excited when I read it and most of the CSM was because we were like, oh man, this is going to be a great day on Reddit and on Twitter that we can, spend some time in the boring sessions. There's always a couple of sessions that some of the members don't care about because obviously if there's like a session on the new player experience, it's going to be other people a lot more involved in the discussion than, for example, me. So I at least had something to read while a session like that was going on. I could go onto Reddit or Twitter and just read all the tears, all the drama. It's always really fun.
That is absolutely crazy. So yeah, I would have thought, being in the CSM that you guys would have had heads up on that, at least a little bit. But
that would have 100% a business decision. Yeah, there's no reason why the CSM wouldn't be given a heads up on that.
Exactly.
It could actually theoretically be illegal.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm surprised that the employees even had heads up on it.
So there's going to be a Q&A tomorrow, of course, or an AMA with Falcon and Paul, and they're going to be able to answer a bunch of questions that I cannot answer. But there were, I think Brisk said it earlier already, there was not a lot of heads up for anyone because of some insider trading laws that are involved. So
yeah, that's understandable. Yeah.
So there was not a lot of heads up given to anyone really.
To the people, one of the things I find funny is a lot of people are saying that, oh no, pay to win is going to come to EVE. I want to point out that pay to win has literally existed in EVE since I've started playing. Like, I keep seeing this argument come up over and over again, but pay to win has 100% been in EVE for as long as I can remember.
To me, it comes down to how do you define pay to win, right? Like, how do you what is pay to win to you, right? Because there's people that would consider skill injectors pay to win. There's people that would consider the ability to buy in-game currency some kind of pay to win, because technically you can just go there, dump $1,000 into or more into Plex, and then buy yourself skill injectors, buy yourself a Titan, and you would basically leap forward to something that somebody wouldn't want to spend the money on the game, would have to train for months or even years.
But that's pay for advancement. That's not pay to win. I mean,
see, exactly.
Yeah. Pay to win has
That's what I'm saying. That's how you define it. For some people, that already is pay to win. I would agree with you. I think it's pay for advancement or whatever you want to call it. And then there's, there's cosmetics that you don't care about at all. At least I don't. For all I care, there could be infinite amounts of cosmetics because they have no effect on the gameplay.
Yeah, but we've seen what affects someone coming into the game who does not even know much about the game, just coming in, dumping a ton of money, buying what seems to be the most overpowered ship in the game, filling it full of purple items, thinking that they were going to basically own face, and then realizing that that doesn't work in Eve.
Right, and that's
Yes.
the biggest difference. That's the biggest difference is that
Biggest difference.
you can be punished for it, right? So it's pay to lose more expensive stuff, right? If
Yes.
you didn't lose your stuff, then it would be literally pay to win because the advancement is winning in that point. But because you can lose that advancement through somebody blowing you up, then it's not quite the same. It's just pay to lose more expensive stuff.
In terms of what my initial feelings were when we got the news, and obviously we had a meeting with Hilma in the morning where he told us a lot about it. And I'm not a very professional businessman or anything. I've just finished university, and but there were some very professional businessmen in the room, like Aerith, for example, who obviously is a very smart guy when it comes to that. And he asked a couple of questions, and after the questions were answered, he seemed satisfied. He didn't seem worried at all. In fact, he told me, I'm not worried about it. And I think it's hard to speculate on how the game is going to turn. Like I said, I've played BDO. I know what they've done to BDO, and especially a couple of weeks ago, they patched in some really stupid shit. But at the end of the day, only time can tell. You can either be optimistic about it or you can be pessimistic about it. You can either say, okay, let's just see what happens. Let time tell. Maybe they will, do some good to the game. Who knows? Or you can be super pessimistic and just be like, oh my God, it's all over now. Eve's going to turn hardcore pay to win. One way or the other. I think what Elise said on Twitter, Elise tweeted something. He said, if a company is willing to invest $400 million into something, they're usually not going to run it into the ground on day one. And that might be a very optimistic point of view. I'm sure lots of people on Reddit and on Twitch or whatever will say that, but that's my personal thing as well. Like I'm not putting my head into the sand. I'm just going to see and watch what happens. And then, I'll make my decision when the time has come. So far, for the next couple of months, I don't even think for the next year, I don't think we'll see much impact onto Eve and its development by the sale. But that's just my personal opinion anyways.
One thing that's really important to remember is that pay to win was like literal pay to win, like golden ammo, was toyed with by CCP, and it literally almost killed them. So since then, they have very much like gone the opposite direction, since the Fearless and the Summer of Rage and all that stuff. So I would be really surprised if they went that direction, just because of the fact that they have this point in memory where it's like, oh yeah, that we lost 30% of our company when we did that.
Yeah,
but that was also a different time. I mean, you can go back through the evolution of monetization in EVE Online. I mean, even when they came out with Plex, there was big discussion at the time about the other things that might be the slippery slope to microtransactions and things like that. And as you've seen over time, they have added other things in. They went to multi-character training. They went to obviously, to today with skill injectors and skill extractors are the money side of it, right?
Correct, but
there are things today. Well, hold on, but there are things today that exist that never would have been able to exist back then because of the mindset of the player base. So the player base's mindset has also kind of evolved over time.
But skill injectors has nothing to do with winning, right? That's pretty much only to catch up. Otherwise, you could say the only way to win in EVE in the past was to have a 2003 character.
Yeah, I think that we've kind of changed the way that or the flexibility of how we obtain power, because a lot of that stuff the reason why some of that stuff was able to be done was because there's equivalencies, right? So like when skill injectors came out, we accepted it because it wasn't a new system. It was just a flexibility of the bazaar, which already existed. The problem is that a lot of people that weren't actually at the Summer of Rage might not remember that there actually was something on the EVE market in the testing that didn't make it to the final production, which was the Golden Scorpion. You could buy a Golden Scorpion using Nex, and it was statistically exactly the same. And yet people freaked out about it because it was the magical production of an item. And then when Fearless was leaked, they talked about golden ammo that would be potentially better. And so those are the things that I believe that there was a line in the sand that was drawn that basically says the EVE economy is more important. And they've done other things to deal with it, like for instance the introduction of the Gnosis and the Synesis and the other literally golden ships that don't destabilize the market. So I think that CCP properly understands what is and isn't able to be introduced.
And I do want to go back
not really
to Killer's mind, because after the CSM met with Hilmar, right? All of a sudden there were a burst of tweets that came out, and they were all positive. And Killers, I didn't see Killers this morning, but I went and looked at it now. All the other CSM already tweeted about our meeting with Hilmar, so I'm just going to say I enjoyed my breakfast this morning.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there was this post on Reddit. It was like, oh, look, within 15 seconds, all of the CSM posted like, we feel very positive about the meeting, coming out of the meeting with Hilma, and there was like blink twice if you're being held hostage or something. It had nothing much to do with that. It was just, we didn't really sit there, write the tweet and be like 3, 2, 1, go. It was mostly just we were finishing the meeting with Hilma, and obviously we all have different sources, and Aerith was being spammed on his, from his goon sources. I was being spammed from INC sources, and Brisk was being spammed from all over the place, and we all just kind of wanted to make a statement. But then I didn't really bother tweeting because they all already tweeted, so why would I bother? I would like it much better, because obviously this is a hot topic right now. We're just going to talk about it, but I think it'll be much more interesting to see what changes to EVE actually come out of the summit. And while I obviously cannot really go into any details, I think that a lot of the player base is going to be very very excited about those. So I think stay positive. It's just what if you don't want to, that's fine. But from my point of view, if you care about what I say at all, then I just say stay positive, keep playing the game if you enjoy it, and I think we'll have a good time.
And
hey
we're
guys,
also
can you
joined
hear
by
me?
Chris. Hey, yeah, we can hear you.
Very very shitty quality, Brisk, but we can hear you. You should come over to my room. You can use my headset.
I know, right? You got a good headset. I'm on my iPad or iPod Buds or whatever. to just back up what Killer B said, what I think everybody needs to realize is that we weren't going to get any crazy negative stuff. This was the equivalent of an investor call, but I think everybody needs to recognize that this type of thing, at least in terms of game companies, is pretty common. And the idea of one company running another company as an independent studio where they still have creative control, all kinds of stuff, is pretty common. So I, as far as I'm concerned, at least in the near future, this is business as usual, and I don't see any reason for anybody to be really, really concerned. The fact is, if anything, I'd say this is a good thing, because not only does it say the company has value, the company has a lot of value and a lot of potential revenue streams for these guys. Otherwise, they would not have paid the premium that they did. So I think, if anything, this is our way of saying our EVE is obviously not dying because a major company that was looking to diversify its portfolio just bought it for a lot of money. And that's a good sign.
Yeah, from a business standpoint, that's definitely a positive. And as Killer, you said, like I put up on the visuals anyway that tweet by Elise about when you're paying 400 million for something, you don't really want to be killing it day one, obviously.
Yeah, it's a lot of that is a lot of money, man.
It is.
It's a lot of money, but I think the one thing that we have seen over and over and over again, at least when I've been in JITA today, when I've been looking at Reddit and everything else, is the fear about monetization, the way the BDO does it. And we already have our own scheme for EVE that works. I don't see a need to change that unless it suddenly stops making money, and it hasn't done that yet. So I don't see a need for them to change any of the stuff that we're currently doing because it's working.
Yeah, very much so.
I'm excited. I don't know about you guys. I'm excited. It's like Christmas now.
I am excited.
Are you easily excited, or well, hold on? What exactly is it that you're excited? Okay, because saying that I'm totally pissed off, like I would ask the same question. So, what are you excited about with this? What is it that BDO brings to the table that you're excited from an EVE Online player perspective?
Well, other than the fact that the people at Pearl Abyss have, captured lightning in a bottle from a technical aspect, and they can have all this really like 8K graphics and 60 frames on not top of the line hardware. That's impressive, and I think that EVE players would appreciate a client that doesn't die if you forget to turn the sound off in a large fleet engagement. But I also think that as far as partnerships, out of all the companies that CCP could have saddled up with, to use a horse analogy, I think that this one is a best case scenario, and I'm excited to see what kind of interesting stuff happens. The future as a timeline, at least from my perspective, explodes with novelty.
And Dirk, if you think of all the unique selling points that EVE has that no other game out there has, right? If you consider that as like patents, if a company bought another company with that amount of almost patentable unique selling points, you would be pretty much excited about that, because maybe they could scale it or develop new products, right? Someone that created a game like BDO, if they just bring some of the good ideas that CCP has been introducing over the years into their game development, that's going to be amazing.
Now, Carmack out there, and he said it on a number of occasions, I can't scroll back now, he thinks it's actually the opposite. He thinks that EVE is being bought for how they can help BDO.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a little of both based on what we were talking about today. I think there's synergies that the companies have, but I think one of the comments that the PA guy said in his interview today was that the DNA of the companies is basically the same, and I think that's probably true. You've got two MMO companies that both have one mega hit, and that's basically it. And I think there are different strategies and different synergies that they can bring together. And to Zenuria's point, one of the things that I'm excited about is one of the cutting edge things that BDO has is its online component. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to open up parts of EVE to online, to mobile, I should say, to mobile that we're not doing right now, that I would love to see them start working on. I mean, Can you imagine being able to do your PI from your phone, or do your contracts from your phone, things like that just is not currently available, but that they have a platform for and have experience doing, and they could potentially help us with.
That would be huge. That would be huge. That would be great.
Because then we can get like 4,000 phones plus 4,000 PCs.
There you go.
What would tie-dye be on my iPhone?
It'd be a new experience.
You wouldn't have to worry about it.
It'll be a new experience when you look at those pictures of the director level kind of sort of EVE Online setups, like with a string of mobile phones as well.
Yeah, it's definitely going to make the movers and shakers of EVE have an easier time moving and shaking if it pans out that way.
But seriously, to all the naysayers, right? If Pearl Abyss was only buying something that they could make more cash and grab on, CCP would be a really bad buy. I don't see why you would buy it. They don't have the numbers, they don't have the product.
I mean, this is exactly, Caleb. This is not a pump and dump kind of company. This is a long-term revenue stream kind of company. And I mean, that's the one thing that they've demonstrated. In 15 years, they can keep the game profitable. You're not going to make your money back in a night, And frankly, the price that they paid looks to me like they've got a maturation on investment of maybe 2 to 3 years minimum. So, I mean, they're in this for the long haul. This wasn't a quick overnight kind of deal.
No, it's a brain power buy, right? Exactly that. It's nothing else. If you wanted to buy something that you just pump and dump, this is really a bad buy, and it's a really bad price.
Yeah, it's a brain power buy, and it's also definitely a Western and China kind of marketplace reach buy as well.
And this kind of thing is happening all the time. I mean, this is a public company that has a ton of cash lying around. What are they going to do with it? Well, they can let it sit there and not make any money with it, or they can diversify, buy up other studios, buy up other assets, and get new revenue streams. I mean, from a business sense, it makes perfect sense why they did it.
But I think when it comes to PA, like I think they do genuinely want to see how to leverage, a player base, or at least their local kind of their local situation in a more what would be more kind of lengthy time period, rather than just creating a game like BDO that has a whole bunch of microtransactions that people will get sick of.
And can I just say that
if
they can fix CCP's merchandise business, I'm all in, totally in.
I still want to talk about that because we have one last dinner, and I'm going to try to talk to some of the guys because I want my ship models, I want my posters. Come on, let's sell this stuff.
And like those ship models that you can buy out in the East of actual Eve ships, that looks amazing. Why can't we get that? Why is that something that you need to go through secret channels and stuff to even get a hold of? I want that in the actual CCP shop.
It would be pretty neat.
Any other nice news? What has been happening the last couple of days? I was a pretty bit disconnected.
I don't think there's much going on today. Definitely not in the north.
The Mila Keepstar got stolen, but you probably heard.
I did see that. Yes, I did see that. All right.
Oh, and Brisk, can you maybe see if you can get a comment on Hilma's role in the future? Because that's one of the things that everyone is talking about.
We asked him that directly. I don't know if I can say it, but I mean, just generally speaking, nothing is going to change in the immediate future.
Ask it on the AMA tomorrow with Falcon and Guard, and if that is an answer that can be given in public, they will answer it.
Yeah,
I agree. Do that.
Yeah, guys, keep an eye out on Reddit for the AMA tomorrow.
So tomorrow 16:30, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow 16:30 Eve time is when the AMA will start with CCP Falcon and CCP Guard on the official forums, not on Reddit, actually. I think on the official EVE Online forums.
Oh boy!
So
dust off that,
Oh,
get the compressed air on that.
Scenario, should we start lobbying to get the BDO guys to actually buy back White Wolf?
I don't know if that's something that should happen or not. I think that we should not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just wait a year and see what happens with this.
Hey, Brisk or Killer, maybe you guys, or anyway, I guess anybody, but just let everybody know, tomorrow at 16:30 UTC, they're going to have the AMA on the official EVE Online forums. How does one, I mean, is that just going to be a forum thread?
Yeah, sounds like it. That's why I said get the air duster.
It'll probably be a thread on the forums, and then you just reply, and then they reply to your reply, pretty much like Reddit, except with their awesome forum infrastructure.
It seems like it's
feel on Twitch, really.
Yeah, I think so too.
A broadcast would be great. I agree. That's actually something I didn't really think about. But
we talked about that, but I think they figured it would be quicker and less overhead time to just do an AMA rather than trying to do a video or something like that.
I think they should just do it all in a Discord.
I think if they did a broadcast, I think if they did a broadcast, they'd just basically be reiterating the same answers to the same questions over and over again, because people wouldn't be able to. People coming into it late would still be asking the questions that they missed.
Well, and we know what they're going to ask anyway. I mean, I was talking to Falcon. We were laughing about it because we know every question that's going to get asked. What does this mean? Is everybody fired? Do you guys have creative control? Who's going to be doing this? Are you going to move from Iceland? Are you going to stay there? Is this going to mean we're going to see crazy new monetization? Are there going to be cat figures in the game? I mean, every question that gets asked tomorrow, we've already, everybody's already asked it.
That's why it should be a Twitch stream where the CSM asks the questions and CCP answers.
Well, hold on.
I want to go to bed.
Not just that, but it's kind of what I DM'd you earlier, Brisk, about the fact that a lot of these questions were asked today with Hilmar, and it would almost be
we
good
asked
if what
every
they could do
single
is
one of these things. I wish I could tell you the answers.
it would almost be good if basically they could start off with the questions that were asked, as much of the answer that basically Hilmar gave, the official answer, so that, you know what, you don't have just the repeats of of these things when we know that the most common questions have already been asked and answered.
Yeah, like literally
I
start
do think that
the
the players
thread.
need to see it from them directly, because I mean, I've been talking in multiple discords to folks today about it, and generally speaking, the folks who are okay with it are okay with it. The folks who are freaking out are like, oh, they wouldn't lie to you, So hearing it from the horse's mouth, or other part, depending on it, whether you like them or not, I think is probably going to be better for the community than just listening to us.
Well, anyways, we've rambled on for quite a bit here. I'm sure that over the course of the next 72 hours, there's going to be even more discussion about it. We'll laugh about it tomorrow night, and then the Meta Show will deal with it on Saturday, and then Talking Stations. I'm going to say it's probably the big one this weekend, simply because pre-booked.
Creative director, right? Creative director
and the new executive producer were already booked for this weekend, just as a casual conversation to kind of introduce these folks a little more out to the player base and everything. And when I saw this break this morning, which was like around 4 a.m. my time, my initial thing was, oh shit, CCP is going to screw us and like not show up this Sunday. And
they will show up. They've mentioned it today that they're coming. They will show up.
Yeah, no, I sent an email and got an immediate response back going, oh no, we're still in. I'm like, all right, cool.
Oh, good. I saw you said something to that effect in the production channel. I was like, has he received a reply? Thank God.
Especially now, right? Like, obviously, while we make our jokes about CCP and their PR sometimes, especially with a hot topic like this, they're interested in coming on and maybe clearing some of the air. Obviously, they can say a lot more stuff than we can because they're actually in charge of something, unlike us.
Well, the only thing I was worried about is kind of given the level of this, right? I was worried that they might postpone this weekend rather than put the new executive producer and the creative director on the spot of knowing that questions would obviously come up because of this recent news.
See, honestly, I don't think that's an issue, because everything that we have seen today, and Sort's here, I mean, so there's three of us now. Everything we have seen today so far has indicated this is business as usual. So I don't see why they would back out.
Good. Sort, you got any comments that you want to throw in there? We're about ready to wrap up, but do you have any of your point of view on?
He needs to sort out his mic, as it were. I unmuted him, but he's locally muted himself. Ah, there we go. I think he sorted it himself. Or maybe not. But yeah.
Oh, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Sort.
Yeah, I am thinking I could get rid of that guy for a couple of hours. Nope.
We could hear you, and unless you stop talking.
Now we can hear. Yeah, now we can hear. I don't think I crushed him that hard. I think he's just not talking. Sort, I'm sorry. Please talk to us.
Stupid fucking push to talk shit. What the fuck is wrong with you people?
There you go. Now we can hear you. Now we can't hear you.
I had to hold up my laptop so I could talk.
No,
Didn't work on my phone.
It's push to talk. Give me a second to boot up the laptop.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough.
Push to talk
it
totally does suck on a phone. I gotta be honest.
It's only because it's an on-air public channel that people can jump into. So we don't want people just broadcasting everything. Well, not just that. Like, we have to a server. Someone with the appropriate permissions have to unmute you first, because everyone comes in here, so we're muted straight away.
This is not NDA, so I'll tell you. Jen actually got completely randomly room 420 in the hotel today.
Yes, but I saw the tweet on that. I thought that was pretty funny.
Pretty funny.
Wow. But yeah, that's the reason why it's that's the reason why it's push to talk and defaults.
Otherwise, you get
on this
people
channel.
breathing and cars going by, and
exactly.
Can't do that with a bunch of people in the chat.
Especially on a live broadcast. I think Manuel might be back. He might actually be back at work now.
I am back.
He's at work.
Well, Sword is booting his laptop. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah,
besides
the rest of the summit. Do you have any comments on it before the summit notes come out in a few months?
I said earlier that I think the summit was really good. I obviously have no reference, but the more senior CSM members have all have shared the same opinion. I think Sword said it or tweeted it. I think Sword tweeted it. He said, "Yeah, it was a good summit," and Arif said he thought it was a good summit too. It was a roller coaster of feelings. Let's just put it that way. But at the end of the day, it matters where we end up, and we're all in a pretty happy and satisfied place at the moment as far as the CSM goes. And at least those of you in chat and those of you that are here on comms didn't know me, I'm a pretty straight shooter. If I thought it sucked, I would say it sucked. I definitely can't say that from my personal my personal point of view. I think it was a good summit. I think that the changes that come out of this summit will be
beneficial.
The general community will appreciate them.
I have a question for you, Killaby, about the summit. Two questions, actually. One, was the food good? And two, were the rooms ready on time?
Yeah, the rooms were ready on time.
Holy cow!
Yeah, we were in a great hotel, and the food. I mean, we didn't. I didn't eat in the CCP cantina once. We usually went out for lunch.
Horse last night?
I didn't eat horse. No, I ate
horse last night. It was fucking great.
Oh yeah, that horse tartar. Ooh, it's banging.
So I'm very happy with the accommodations and the food and everything. It's just obviously everything is super fucking expensive, but that's just Iceland.
I'm just saying there's hope for CCP as a company if after all these years they finally managed to schedule the rooms so that they would be ready by the time the council actually arrived.
I think from at least from a logistics perspective, and I have pretty high standards for this type of stuff because I do it all the time. Everything was held pretty well. I mean, there was never an issue, no mistakes. I think we had to worry about breakfast one day because the hotel didn't have us down for breakfast, but that was immediately rectified. But getting back to the more substantive stuff, I think B said it pretty well. Again, I don't have a reference either, but I've served on similar bodies in the past for other games, and I thought if we can get follow through and over the next couple of weeks and months over the stuff that we talked about, I think people will look back and say this is probably one of the more consequential CSMs that there has been. And I think that'll be a good thing. So I'm looking forward to working with them over the next 2 or 3 months to get the stuff that we talked about implemented.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can now.
Sweet.
Oh, I just want to answer a question out there. Avenging Sasquatch said, "What I don't get is these guys talking like this is the best possible buyer for Eve. What the fuck are they smoking crack? It's one of the worst possibilities if you really know how the company operates." I don't think anybody is saying that this is the best possible buyer. Like if you were to go out there and find what may have been the
I want to answer
immaculate match, but I don't know that anybody has said who that might have been.
Who does he think is the best possible buyer? What company? So what gaming? We like I said earlier, the rumor that CCP was going to be bought by some other gaming company has been floating around for 2 years now. So everybody kind of expected it. Nobody really knew when it was going to happen or who it was going to be. And I don't remember his name. But whoever said that, I want to hear from him. Who does he think would be interested, or what company would have been better to buy CCP? That would actually care about buying CCP, because companies like Activision Blizzard, they have no interest in buying something like CCP. They already have a very big portfolio of games and stuff they have out there, right? There's no way that somebody like Blizzard would buy CCP. EA, I don't think you would have been happy when if EA had bought CCP either, because I think the shitstorm would have been even bigger.
Oh, it would have been bigger because I would have.
I think folks should just be happy that it's a game company that has produced a successful MMO that did the buying. I mean, if this had been another venture capitalist firm or some other group that had no idea or understanding of what the gaming community is about, or what EVE players or even just MMO players in general are about, that bought the company, I'd be much more concerned, because at the end of the day, their only thing would be "fuck you, pay me," and they would focus solely on profitability and those types of things, and they wouldn't be looking for a long-term investment. So I think at the end of the day, there are very few companies out there that match the profile of what EVE is, and I think this one is one of the ones that fits, and it makes sense. Maybe it's not the best in the world, but it's obviously not the worst. But again, at the end, I'd also say this is the first day. The deal is not consummated until middle of October, and at that point, then we can start looking forward as to what's happening. But anybody saying today, "Oh my God, this is horrible," we have no idea.
So somebody
Can I add something to that for a second?
Yeah, go. Sorry.
So the most important thing to understand about this is it's not a merger. They bought the company in its entirety. They bought everything about it. The company is still operating as a company. So it's very important to remember that it's not a merge. They don't just merge and gut the person and then go on and develop it themselves. CCP is still developing EVE Online. That's the most important thing to remember.
Correct.
Exactly. It's not they're not buying an IP, they're buying the company. And that's a big, big difference.
Well, the other thing I want to put here, because somebody said it out there about CSM guys white knighting, and probably other people talking about how we've been trying to maintain a level of positivity regarding this, right? It's not about white knighting. It is about not just diving into the deep recesses of negativity, the worst things you can find. Let's see how it plays out. We all have the opportunity to create backlash when and if things don't go the way the player base is happy with.
I would say
now is not that time.
When or if.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that we woke up this morning to the article and we had questions, and when we went into the room, Hilmar could have just basically said, "Fuck you, I'm not going to answer any of them."
Hilmar could have just not come.
He could have just not turned up. He didn't. He sat there and he answered all the questions. He did everything we wanted. Obviously, it's going to be NDA. It wasn't on the record. We took a lot of the questions that people had asked in different Discords that we're in. But the reality is that anybody who understands business, anyone who understands running a business in real life, or even in EVE, for example, you will know that this is not a bad thing. A company like Elisa's tweet was the perfect tweet. No one's going to buy a company and then sink it. Like it's not.
No, not intentionally. Most people don't try to do that, but
unless you're EA.
But most companies, okay. So one to add thing to that, most companies that have that kind of money and have the ability to do something with it aren't going to buy a company to sink it, right? Like
Especially not for half a billion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the people freaking out here, it's like, in reality, that company wants CCP to succeed. So why would they buy something to sink it?
And there's also other like tertiary kind of things that Pearl Abyss have bought, like alongside buying CCP, and it's the ability to be able to to push mobile games into China, and the ability to be able to further develop mobile games for Western societies.
Can I also establish something here as well, guys? I mean, we've had to, the summit's just finished. The amount of freak out from you guys when the announcement's been done 8 hours ago, it's just ridiculous, guys. Calm the fuck down just a little bit. This is a pretty big deal that it would have taken months to sort out. And I mean, at least take a breath. The company, it's going through, guys.
To be fair, most of the people that are listening on Twitch and most of the people that have been in the channel today, have taken more of a wait and see type approach. Reddit and some of the other places out there, where Twitter, places where it's basically just launch a one sentence thing out there. have been a little more on the negative side. But
I would say that as you speak to your corp members, as you speak to your alliance members, as you speak to your friends, people that you interact with, I would suggest people take the time to actually read the blogs, wait for the AMA they're going to do tomorrow on Reddit. And
I would really suggest that you read the interview that was done with the actual company as well. It's very illustrative and basically, like, it was hammered home there. They basically said in 4 different ways, CCP is still their own company and we do not control them. Like, you know, they are treating. Actually, I don't want to go in any more detail than that, obviously, because of NDA. I'm always very wary of going up against that, especially when it comes to business stuff like this. But even beyond that, this would, you know, the CSM has rubbed up against monetization in CCP and the ways that CCP have wanted to monetize in the past, and we have been listened to with regards to those things. You know, CCP aren't going to just do things for profit's sake if it's going to blow up the community. That's not beneficial to them. At the end of the day, they have a solid subscriber base, and upsetting that subscriber base, which is what effectively is being purchased in some regards.
So
it seems like a foolish decision.
So also add to Jin's thing for a second. Just one thing. We have also encouraged CCP to monetize certain areas as well. Like, we want CCP to make money too, because the game doesn't exist when they don't. They couldn't keep doing things. They couldn't keep making money and be acquired if they didn't make money. It's not a good thing if CCP doesn't make money. So monetization is not something to be scared of if it's monitored in the right direction.
Which is why, and I'm not breaking NDA saying this because I told everybody I was going to do it. I think I've said Alliance skins about 30,000 times this week, and I'm going to keep saying it until it happens. Money being left on the table.
I mean, everyone said that. I mean, it's not a big secret that it's wanted for a while. It's been in the minutes for the last 8 or 9 years. But I mean, I think freaking out a little bit, and I'm saying this is not the people that are listening right now freaking out, but it's very important to not create some kind of shitstorm before people actually get a chance to read it. We as the community have an obligation as well to look at the person next to you who's freaking out and going, why are you actually freaking out? And try and have a discussion as adults instead of children who have just thrown their toys out.
Yeah, this is something that came up earlier in the CSM Discord. We would much rather you guys, if you're worried about specific changes, if you're worried about CCP introducing pay to win stuff, then tell us what's pay to win and where you think the line is at the end of the day. We think that it's simply, when you pay for something and it affects gameplay. That's a pretty basic line, and I think everyone in the community agrees with that. Yeah. And I would expect that CCP agrees with that. Or at the very least understands that, because, given what they've done in the past, that seems to be the line that they've accepted,
Jin, that article that you talked about, is that VentureBeat article, interview with Hilmar that you talked about? That people should read.
No, there was an interview with the owner of PA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in it, he literally stated he wants Eve to succeed on the formula that it works on.
Well, but I have to agree with some people in Twitch chat here. Obviously, they write the most bloomy shit in those press releases and in those articles. PA would never admit on some public forum, it's yeah, we're buying this company and we're gutting it, Exactly. I wouldn't take everything they say in those press releases and stuff for granted, but that's the thing that I feel people should care more about, because it's not just me and Brisk and Sword, it's also Aerith and pretty much anyone in the CSM. We sat in the room with them, and I got out of the meeting with a good feeling. I didn't what I've heard, what I've seen, I don't feel bad. I feel good. And that's what I care. I don't give a shit about some press release somewhere in the internet, because frankly they could write anything in there, right? But I care about how I felt coming out of the room with them, and I felt good. I didn't feel bad. I just, okay, this sounds like a proper thing, I'm good. And that's what matters to me personally.
Yeah, something else to probably touch on is, oh god, sorry, I've got a complete brain fart. Give me a minute.
I do have a question for Sort, since he's probably not going to be around tomorrow night. We're getting ready to wrap up here. But What was it that you wept about on day one?
Oh, what on day one? What?
Yeah, I don't know. You tweeted out something about it was a very emotional day or something like that.
Oh, I mean, I'll be honest. I lost my shit in one of the sessions. Like, it'll come out in the minutes, and it was brutal. But one thing
But that was also one of the best sessions that we had too.
Well, the follow-up was. The first one was not. So what I was before you interrupted me, I was going to say is the follow-up. Anybody that's asked me is that the follow-up sessions that we had with the teams where we had the most controversy. I don't know if you can call it controversy or the most
heated discussion.
Yeah, the most heated discussions. And I'm not known for being an unemotional person. Probably the most emotional in the CSM. And I don't generally let punches hold punches. And they took it kind of full barrel or 2 barrels from me. And they came back afterwards and wanted a second session with us and wanted a second session on the things we discussed. So, but I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's not.
No, okay, yeah, that's fine. And I wasn't sure if it was you gave him 2 barrels or like you cried about something. Like I was reading that tweet going, he says it was both positive and negative. So I'm like, did he weep and did he rejoice?
There were some touchy sessions that I got quite emotional with on a personal level. Don't think you'll ever see what those sessions are.
I apologize. I thought that was the one we were talking about, Sword. Not the other.
No. So yeah, Brisk is absolutely right. That session, I was on the border of tears talking about real life issues with CS. But other than that, the actual session was fucking phenomenal. They came into the room very prepared. We ended the session really, really well. It was a session that we'd asked for months. And both sides were very optimistic. We're both basically looking at the sessions going, I wonder what's going to come of this. And we both came in the room and it was like, for the first couple of seconds, it's like the prey stalking a prey on both sides. And then we got into it and the fucking session was incredible. We got a massive amount of progress out of it, a massive amount of progress out of what it'll help for the player base going forward. But those kind of things, it's been an emotional roller coaster of a week. Obviously, waking up this morning and seeing this, like you're like, oh fuck, another day of wanting to do it. But then again, fucking Hilmar hits it out of the fucking park, and you're like, fuck's sake, I don't know where to settle on this.
Yeah, and one thing that I will say is, there's obviously been some accusations of us white knighting here, and I want to say that we're not going to be afraid to push back if CCP does, if Pearl Abyss do try and fuck with CCP's monetization strategy. That's obviously something that we would not be fundamentally okay with. At the end of the day, raging out about something that might happen when you don't even have any plans, you have no information as to whether it might happen or what's going to happen, it's pointless. Because all it does is make us look like a bunch of petulant man-children, and it means that when they do actually do something that's wrong, then we have no power to mess with them at the end of the day. The CSM has to step in line and work with the community to show that things are issues sometimes, and to show. And
I said this.
It doesn't help when people are getting mad about stuff without knowing what they're even getting mad about. Like, people don't seem to be able to even rationalize what they're afraid of. We're not being, people are saying like gold ammo and loot boxes are things we're worried about, and I'm like, yeah, but even CCP, like even on the worst of worst days, I don't think anyone would ever think of that as a reasonable thing to bring to the forefront, because that's.
No.
I think you.
And I mean,
cut out
what I would tell folks in the chat, I don't have Twitch up, so I'm not seeing what people are saying. But I mean, look, at least from my perspective, I'm not a CCP fanboy. I'm not white knighting them. I don't represent them. I said it in my campaign video. I don't represent CCP. I represent the players, and I'm going to express the players' concerns that I think are valid to the company, and I will do my best to provide my interpretation of what the company is telling me back to the players. And as far as I'm concerned, at least in this regard, it's business as usual. Until we have a reason to be concerned, there's no reason to be concerned. I mean, this is not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It just happened, and we'll see down the road whether there's an impact. But for now, we got other important things to worry about, and it has nothing to do with who owns the company.
I don't think anyone's actually brought this up either, is that if you spend $1 million, you can go out and have a wild weekend in Vegas and buy a car or buy like some flashy thing for $1 million. When you spend $425 million, you do your due diligence. You look at what you're buying, and you look hard at what you're buying. You go in and go, what am I getting for this? And so a company like that's going to look at it and go, well, okay, I'm looking at a player base who only understands a certain type of monetization. They only want a certain type of monetization. Why we're not going to influence this, because we see how they react when that company has ever tried to push for something else. You can tell that they would have sat there, they would have gone through like statements of income and everything like that for a company for years. And anytime there was a low point, they would have asked CCP, what happened here? What did you do here? What did you do here? And CCP, if they wanted to sell the company, would have obviously said, we did this, the people complained this way, they complained this way. And those kind of things are the kind of things they look for. And if they had turned around, like Jin said, and said, oh, we want to make golden ammo and our fucking shit went through the floor, that's going to obviously happen. They're not going to make these stupid decisions. They're going to know what they're going into.
Yep. All right. So you know what? We'll call it there. This has been going on for several hours now, and I don't know. Probably not a whole lot.
As we're doing it.
No. That's fine. You guys were doing your thing up there, and
and there's a lot of avenues that we explored in terms of this whole topic and various different topics, associated with it. So if you're kind of interested in all the other aspects, then definitely definitely have a listen to the to the VOD. But yeah, we should probably call it around about now ish.
Yeah. Anyway, just a reminder, Sunday, Talking in Stations, what is that? Is it 1600 Eve? Something like that?
It is.
Yeah, I think
Sunday
some of us
Talking
are going to try
Stations
to make it
1600 Eve, the new executive producer, CCP Manbjorn, and the new creative director, CCP Berger, are going to be on. It is, I'll tell you right now, up front, it will be a conversation about them, which is what it was designed about. And we will eventually get to portions of this acquisition, really more along the lines of how it applies to them, in terms of kind of the future of EVE Online, the things that they're going to be responsible for. But yeah, 1600 EUTC on Sunday.
Try to go easy on them. Both those people are really nice people.
Oh no!
We're not going to be savage. Jesus.
I've been setting this up for, I don't know, probably 6 weeks now, something like that. And the way I pitched it to them, I wanted to do this because I don't feel that CCP actually introduced the new executive producer out there to the player base adequately. I think that there were some interviews that they did with some kind of real world media stuff and whatnot, but they're.
I can tell you why.
The players haven't heard the voice yet and kind of answers directly from them. So I've been trying to set this up for 6 weeks, and it's just happenstance that it happened, that it finally came about this particular weekend after the news today.
I can tell you probably why they did that.
We're all ears.
You guys complained that people weren't doing their jobs to fix their game, so they did their jobs and tried to fix your game.
Possible. Very possible.
It was originally scheduled for 2 weeks ago, and then it had to change. But here it is this weekend. So yeah, everybody, thanks for everybody who joined us in the channel today, and all of you out there who were watching and chatting along. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah. I'd also like to say, also check out, because Dirk is, very humble in that sense. Also check out Open Comms, which will be on tomorrow.
We're probably going to laugh about a lot of this shit tomorrow night. So.
Yep. Push the Talk and also Meta Show, that'll be on Saturday. And of course, obviously, Talking Stations on Sunday. So with that, I think we're out. See you guys.
Later, people.